Good evening, residents of Litchfield, and welcome to the October 7th, 2020 school board meeting. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our meetings continue to be remote with only members of the board in the audience, along with a guest or two. So if any of the public has any input when it comes to public input, our phone number is 1-650-215-5226. The access code is 1-63227-5831. Again, the phone number, 1-650-215-5226. Access code 1-63227-5831. Any revisions to the agenda?
We do not.
Summary of non-public actions from September 16, 2020. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of September 2nd, 2020. Mr. Myers, second. Motion carried by roll call vote. Mr. Burke, yes. Mrs. Harrison, yes. Mrs. McDonald, yes. Mr. Myers, yes. Mrs. Hirschberger, yes. Mr. Burke made a motion to accept the nomination of Christine Rice Pearson as part-time physical education teacher at CHS for prorated salary of $36,724.71 for the 2020-2021 year. Mrs. Hirschberger, second. Motion carried by roll call vote. Mr. Burke, yes. Mrs. Harrison, yes. Mrs. McDonald, yes. Mr. Myers, yes. Mrs. Hirschberger, yes. That will bring us to correspondence.
Great. Let's see. I have 5 emails tonight to share. And Michelle, I forwarded them all to you.
Yes, I do have them.
Great. The first one is from Heidi Ames, 21 Moose Hollow Road, Litchfield, New Hampshire. Dear school board members, I wanted to take a minute to send an email to ask the district step in and help our teachers. I know that the school principals are working tirelessly to come up with solutions to ease the overwhelming burden on our teachers, and those efforts are truly appreciated by our teachers. But they are drowning. Our teachers are absolutely drowning. They are crying in bathrooms at school. They are mentally exhausted. They are working themselves to the bone under the current plan that on a good day has them doing 2 jobs. They've been given an impossible task, and they're doing their best with it, but at the expense of their own physical and mental health, as well as their own family time. Specifically at GMS, in addition to the rigorous demands of synchronous learning, the teachers face additional obstacles. Young students who do not know how to type and do not have familiarity with computers, students who need worksheets, actual books, and hands-on materials, students who do not even have Chromebooks because GMS is not one-to-one, the teaching of 5 subject areas instead of focusing on a single subject, etc. The teachers are being asked to prepare for 4 groups of students every day, groups that flux and change. In-school students, remote students, absent students, and temporary remote students, students who would normally be in school that are remote because of illness and quarantines. For example, my 4th grade students class had 6 normally in-school students absent last Monday and temporarily remote learning. So her teacher had to prepare 1 for the 10 in-school students, 2, the 3 always remote students, 3, the 6 normally in-school students that were temporarily switching to remote and therefore needed materials, and any students that were previously absent that need to catch up on work they missed. Not to mention that there is an added complication when the teachers themselves are absent and then they have to catch up. There's a quote circulating online: just because they are carrying it well does not mean that it is not heavy. Unknown. The load is too heavy, and our amazing, wonderful teachers are about to crack. We need to do something about it, and as school board members, you have the power to. So some ideas from someone who is not an educator but wants to help generate creative solutions. 1, have all students be remote 1 day per week, perhaps Wednesdays, to allow the teachers to plan, prepare materials for remote and in-school students, answer emails, and simply get the work they need to get done. This will have the added bonus of allowing the schools to have deeper cleanings since our custodians are also short-staffed. Number 2, find the money to hire new teachers to exclusively teach the remote learners. 3, allow teachers to teach from home when they are quarantined or absent, especially for remote students. 4, create a facilitator type position for each grade that can coordinate the remote students. Maybe they don't teach, the students can log in for that. But they do all the work of posting, grading the assignments, coordinating the meets, coordinating independent work, connecting with parents, and ensuring social emotional connections, etc. Something to lighten the load. I know Principal Lonergan, Principal Lechleiter, and Principal Mitchell are doing their best, and I'm sure there are others with more experience in education that can come up with even more creative ideas. But this cannot continue as is, or we're going to lose some of these amazing teachers. I'm genuinely concerned, and as a parent, I feel it's my duty and obligation to rally for them. I would also point out that this is not a problem that can wait much longer, as we are a month in and the days are getting harder, not easier. Thank you for listening, Heidi Ames. Next email is from Jennifer Byron. Dear school board I don't have an address for Jen. Dear school board members and members of the Litchfield school community, I wanted to thank the school board and the members of the Litchfield School and Fall Sports community for all of their efforts to date in keeping our students safe thus far this fall semester. I have 2 children at Campbell, and I'm very pleased with their transition back to school thus far this year. Both are also involved in extracurriculars and sports, and we are simply thrilled that they are playing sports and working with their teammates, coaches, and the athletic director to make the most of their season thus far in these difficult times. Thank you, and again, we appreciate all you are doing for our children and the families of Litchfield. Regards, Jen Byron. Next is from Amanda Lassard, 14 Deerwood Drive. Dear Litchfield School Board, I'm very concerned with the health and well-being of our teachers. What we are asking them to do is over the top. None of this is normal, and we all need to adjust. They need more time to plan and get everything together, or we are going to lose great teachers. Many of them have families of their own that they need to have time for as well. I really think in these unprecedented times, we need to rethink what we're asking our teachers to do. Could we carve out some time for planning during the week? Maybe have one day be fully remote for all and teachers plan and collaborate. Thanks for listening, Amanda Lassard. Oops. Next one is from Melissa Reiki, 13 Natticook Ave. She wrote 2 emails, but they have 2 different separate topics. So I'll read the first one. Over 2 years ago, I was hired in district as a substitute teacher. I was told at the time of being hired that I would receive $13 an hour regardless of what position I was covering. For the last 2 years, that has remained true regardless of the position and school that I've covered. I've covered numerous positions in all 3 schools, although I have come to love working at GMS, so that's where I mainly substitute. This summer at the school board meetings, the superintendent came to the board and asked for a raise for the substitutes in the district so the district would be competitive in their pay. The new pay rate was going to be $15.50 per hour. I was watching that meeting and was very happy. 2 weeks later, they came back and had to change that due to contractual issues with the support staff. No longer would I be paid a flat rate, but according to the information I received via email, I would still have an increase in pay. Imagine my surprise when I received a paycheck and saw that I was actually being paid less than the $13 an hour I was hired at for some of the subbing that I was doing. I was being paid $12.93 for the hours I was at lunch and recess with the children. I thought for sure there was an error. I read back on my emails and there was nothing mentioned about this, so I reached out to Holly. I was informed that was correct, and that the recess and lunch monitors receive a lower pay as a substitute. So without prior knowledge, I was receiving less pay than I was hired for. Not only is this not legal, it's not professional practice. The difference in my pay is minimal. I will retroactively be paid the difference as I was never told, but going forward, if I continue to sub at recess and lunch, I will take a pay cut for those positions. What bothers me the most about it is the seeming lack of caring that is happening. I feel a lack of value coming from the superintendent and HR. Before I realized I was taking a pay cut for those hours, I had told the wonderful office staff that I would continue to help most days with lunch and recess because they've yet to be able to hire enough staff to do the job. After my multiple communications with the district, I considered saying forget it because I was so angry and hurt. However, the only people that I'd be hurting by doing that are the people that actually do value what I do. As a substitute in the district, I'm incredibly disappointed in the higher-ups that made these changes and don't seem to see them as an issue. The last one is also from Melissa Reiki, 13 Natticook Ave. I have been subbing a lot at GMS this year and have to give a ton of praise to all the teachers and staff at the school. They are doing an amazing job given the challenges they have in front of them. However, I am worried. They are barely holding their heads above water. Many of the teachers and staff, including the office staff, are working well above their contracted hours, and this is not okay. I was and still am a huge advocate for in-school learning. I believe that the best decision was made for the children and families in the district. However, at the elementary level, it's not sustainable with how it's currently being done. I'm concerned about burnout from the staff in our district, who are the very foundation of our schools. I believe we need to tweak the schedule to make this more sustainable in the long run, as it doesn't look like COVID is going anywhere. Many districts are doing 4-day weeks, with Wednesday being a learning day at home. Although I realize this would be difficult on the families in the community, I think it is a good solution for the teachers at GMS. I'm really speaking for GMS, as that is where I substitute, so I see it firsthand. I cannot really speak for the middle and high school as I'm not there. However, I would think they could use the gift of time as well. After 4 weeks in school, we can see what is really working and what isn't working. Now would be the perfect time to make changes with the things that aren't working. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Melissa. And that's it for correspondence.
Okay, thank you. So that'll bring us to superintendent comments.
So a couple of things to get back to the board on. At the last meeting, we were asked about the preschool teachers and the schedule that was there. So I had a conversation with Devin to find out what that schedule looked like. The preschool teachers, if you remember, on Wednesday, they're not having the students in the program. That's because they are spending time cleaning in the classroom, cleaning the materials, making sure they transition from group 1 to group 2. And they're also going into homes that day. So there are students who are receiving services at home. And so they are going there to deliver those services. So that explains some of the time that they're not in the program, because they're out in the field delivering services. So I asked Devin, I'm like, are you positive that this is comparable? I want to make sure that, the workload is there, and she's confident that it's exactly where it needs to be and doing everything that we need to do. Keep in mind, it is a special needs program initially. And so, meeting the IEPs is obviously the key purpose of
Are there
the
parents
preschool.
with them that day? Do the parents stay and clean with them all day Wednesday?
I didn't ask about the pairs.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they could be used somewhere else during that time.
Again, she felt confident that they were meeting what needed to be done, but I'll ask about the pairs specifically. Second thing I have is the school board delegate assembly. So just a reminder to the board, I'm sure you're getting those emails, as I am many times a week, reminding us that there are resolutions due by the 6th. So if the board has an idea of a resolution or wants to dig into the existing pool of resolutions, here's your opportunity to do it. We actually, we brought one forward a couple of years ago, and it was joined up by another district and voted on. So we had a good experience doing that. Just a reminder, if the board wants to jump on one, the time is now to make that happen.
Excuse me, who would like to be the delegate?
Oh, what's the date of the delegate assembly? Is that in there?
January 23rd.
January 23rd. And I would not try to venture a guess as to whether it's an in-person experience or a
Yeah,
remote.
right.
Well, they say on their notice that they, right
still
now
remote.
they're closed
Yeah.
to visitors, but tentatively expect to open their doors on December 31st.
Okay. I wouldn't mind doing it again. It was a really good experience. Rubbing elbows with other school board members, hearing input from other districts.
And what's the deadline for having a resolution to put in?
The deadline for the resolution is Friday, November 6th. So we would need to bring something forward at the next board meeting
Mhm.
in order to get it done in time for that.
Excellent.
So
January 23rd?
Yeah.
All right. I'll mark my calendar.
perfect. All right. Next, I want to talk about the 2020 enrollment projections. And I don't know if I can actually present because we have that meeting set up. But if you click the enrollment projection link, And there's not a link to the October 1st enrollment because these are the October 1st enrollments. So basically, when you look at this doc, and hang on a minute, I got to change the size of it. You can see that we've got the history going back to the 2007-2008 school year. And Michelle and I poured over this in the office to try to make sure we had the numbers the best we could. So what you see highlighted in orange are the 2020/2021 projection numbers. That comes right off of last year's sheet. So using the formula that we had last year, we were predicting an overall population in the district of 1,300 students. You can then look at the 2020-2021 actual, which is in green, and that is done by class and by school and by overall district. And those are the October 1st numbers. So that's what we compare to, okay? And you'll notice that we came in 10 fewer students than anticipated at 1,290. So the projection was pretty accurate. Although I think forever this school year is going to have an asterisk on it because, we're including students who are enrolled remote, but we definitely had students who made other educational choices based on the fact that,
Go get Robin.
it was the COVID year.
Can you go get Robin?
And then what we've done is we have followed the cohort averaging model. So remember, it's a 3-year averaging model, and we've projected out what we envision our population being. So basically, the charts that are in yellow, which are the future prediction charts, they utilize the numbers in the bottom chart that takes a look at what the 3-year average was. It then comes up with an average annual change per grade and makes a prediction on what we will need based on that averaging. So that's how it's laid out to kind of calculate that for you. So I want to pause on page 1. Don't look at page 2 yet, which is taking those numbers and putting them into operation in terms of staffing. But I want to make sure that the board is comfortable with the numbers or understands where the numbers have come from. And I'm reading Tara's note, which I didn't see
So
till just
my
now.
question was, if I just look at this real quick, the average change, 24, I'm looking at the bottom. So 3-year average change is 24. So wouldn't 24 be, like the new projection be 24 higher than the actual? This is where I wanted to see where the formulas were. So where does that 24 get added into? Because the actual this year was 1290, and then 2021 to 22 is 1309. So that's 19 more. Do you see what I mean?
So the numbers are, the way all those numbers are in that chart, they are based on the grade level changes up above. So I'd be cautious of the totals because the total 4-year average might not be exactly how that averages out. Because you're right, it's predicting an increase of 24 P12.
And then
Which-
it looks like we would be getting rid of 3, right? Seniors. So that 21. Okay. All right.
And we're predicting that we're going to go from 1290 this year up to 1309 next year.
Yeah.
And I think we have to, which is not 24. So,
I mean, it's close because there are 3 in 12th grade that are supposedly going to move out next year, right? So really, maybe the increase is 21, but we have 19. So I didn't really understand. I mean, but it's close.
well, the other thing too, Michelle, I thought when we did this, hang on, I got to look at the original source doc because I thought we had taken some of those totals out of that column. Nope, we didn't. It's still at 24.
It's still at 24.
Yeah, the totals came out in the chart down below. So, so Tara, I'd have to go back. When I look at the 24, it takes the 73 right above it,
Yep.
and it takes an average. It divides it by 3 and rounds it to the closest whole number. So that's how it gets 24 because it rounds it.
Yep.
but it's based on the total change of 73. So it's not it is still an average because it's the total change divided by the 3 years. But the 1309 that you see up above
Yep.
is actually summing up the kindergarten,
All the grades.
yes, correct.
Except for pre-K.
So what we then do with it is we take, that's right, just ignoring the pre-K. And then if you take that piece, and I can get you the original doc so you can view the formulas and see how they add. The next page of it is really the staffing projection that comes from that. So what are the needs at each building? The green in the middle is the current enrollment and the current staffing. You can see what last year's enrollment and staffing was, and then we make a prediction for next year based on the numbers that are up above. So essentially, we're predicting that kindergarten will hold steady at 4 staff members, average class size of 18, the 18 and a half, actually. The first grade, we will need a 5th teacher for because we're predicting that that's going to go up to 86. And the second grade, we're predicting will be at 81. So because of the shift in the average class size there to 20, we can reduce 1 teacher. So essentially, the only staffing need that we see is a reduction of a 2nd grade teacher and the addition of a 1st grade teacher. So it's really a trade of a teacher.
Why is
Assignment.
fourth grade not looking for a 5th?
4th grade,
23.
yeah, because the average class size in 4th is 23.
So is the formula different than in 3rd grade? It's not, right? Because currently in 3rd grade, we have 90, 5 teachers, 86 in 2nd grade, 5 teachers.
Yep.
But yet we go to 89 and we go down to 4.
Because the 4th grade class size guideline is
So-
23.
So it goes up in 4th?
It goes from 20, and then in 4th grade, it goes up to
Okay.
23.
I
So,
don't know if it's 4th or 5th grade it went up.
This isn't set in stone. We can still discuss this if the numbers go down.
Well, if you look at the projections for this year, 1st grade was an issue that was supposed to be much higher and it just stayed steady. So, yeah. Again, this is just a guideline. It's just
Yeah.
a
And this
projection
year,
like
again, is
a year out.
anomaly anyway, because we had students withdraw too
Huh.
for different reasons.
but overall, I guess the lesson of this whole exercise is that we're predicting the class sizes to be, or the staffing needs for next year to be neutral. So in developing the budget, which we have our first look with the school board on November 5th with the first budget session. And at that point, we would not be expecting, based on these numbers, to bring any staffing changes forward. We are talking about technology needs of the district going forward and thinking about long-term look at how we better staff our tech department and provide support for our teachers. And so that's not tied to population, it's tied to a shift in the model. So I don't want you to hear me say I'm not bringing forward any staffing. It would be programmatic staffing, not enrollment-based staffing. So. Any other questions for me on the enrollment projection? All right. So the last piece that I wanted to bring up is this book request that you see here. And if you click the link, hoping it looks better. Yes, it looks better in on the screen than it does on paper. So that's good. So basically, this is a request for a book purchase for our Intro to Programming class at Campbell High School. So Mr. McDonough has asked us to consider this book for the Programming 1 class. And you can see how he rated the book. The only thing that had developmentally appropriate be rated as a 3 is because it is a college level book, but it's also a college level course being taught at the high school. So students who are choosing this know that they're taking a Running Start class and should know that they're getting a college level book. And it was approved by PERC, so it was put through the process. And if you look at item H, which is the cost for the book, basically the college system right now has a grant that is available to them to support students in the high schools taking, you may have seen this on WMUR, taking college level courses. So we have to purchase the book at the tune of $2,879.64. And then we're anticipating 100% reimbursement from the Running Start program. So this is something that we want to move on and take advantage of the grant opportunity. So we'll make the purchase and then be reimbursed.
Is it a new class that we're offering?
No, it's been an ongoing class.
Okay, just a different change,
Yeah,
a change
yeah.
in text.
So why are we purchasing books after the school year started?
They have an existing book, is my understanding.
Yeah, and it's not a great text.
And so when Running Start came forward, when the community college system came forward with this grant, it's like, we have this money, we can help you get a book. And so Sean jumped on this.
So what I also read out of this is that there are online tools available for providing testing that maybe the other book didn't
Yeah,
have,
that's probably true.
as part of the recommendation.
And how is it we're sure that we'll get the money back?
So I asked that question of Mary, and Mary feels very confident. There's a limited pool, so that's why she wants to move quickly on this, because if we don't submit for the grant, for the reimbursement, it's possible the money gets spent elsewhere, but Mary's at her wording to me was 100% reimbursement from the grant,
If approved.
if approved.
Make a motion to approve the programming 1 textbook request.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Tina and a second by Tyra. Further conversation? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Tina,
Aye.
Tyra,
Aye.
Rob, Liz,
Aye.
Brian, aye.
Perfect. That's what I have for the board tonight.
That brings us to school board comments.
I had a comment about our upcoming meetings. I know that we're scheduled, I think I'm right on this, Mike. The budget review sessions are in conjunction with the budget committee. They'll be present while we go through and do our analysis line by line of the budget. Is that scheduled to be held in the auditorium?
It is.
Okay.
We can't have the budget committee and the board in this
Right.
room given current restrictions. So I checked with Rob Fay, and he said, if we go back to the best place is to go back to the high school and set up in the auditorium, because they're already set to stream from there.
I wondered too if it would make more sense to continue having meetings at the auditorium so that we can have public attendance and public input. I mean, I feel like we've had an uptick in public input and communication, but it's not seamless. And if we can spread out, I think people will attend. I mean, our mission is to have attendance and people paying attention and to be open and transparent and communicative, and to have opportunities for people to share their feedback and input. And I feel like eliminating one venue for doing that and having a phone call, where we've experienced tech issues, or having me read all the emails that come in, I feel like we're missing out on some potential input. So I'd like to see us move to the auditorium until we can safely convene with as many people in attendance as we need.
Can we discuss this with Rob and see if it's,
Yeah, I mean, Rob had said that if we go to the high school, if we're not going to be here, the high school auditorium's the place. So he didn't flinch at that. The old meeting room really doesn't work anymore because the equipment's not
It's
set up
smaller
in
than
there.
here
Well,
anyway.
just so you know, that room where all the equipment is
Right.
now an office. All that stuff is gone because it was obsolete. So that's taken care of. So, and then the gym, when we've had a couple of meetings in the gym, it's taken a lot of setup time. The auditorium is ready to go. We can accommodate 59, I think, is the number that Mike sent out. So you can have 59 people in the audience. And then we just have to decide, okay, do we set up on the stage in the pit? How do we do it?
I just feel like it sends us having these meetings that are closed to the public sends a very different message than us having all of our students or 80% of our students back in school full time. And I think we should be providing an opportunity to parents and to community members who may not be able to sit and watch from home or call in.
I just like to make sure that the audio is going to be clear. I know that they've had some meetings that,
We would have to have somebody trained on the soundboard and the lights because there's only one person.
Can we train a student to do that?
It was on a duet.
Do we have students who might be interested in learning the board?
Absolutely. In fact, in the past, that's what we've done is
Yeah.
we've asked
I think that's a
students
good
to assist.
opportunity for student
Absolutely.
involvement.
So Rob just emailed that meetings in the auditorium require multiple LCTV people.
Right.
Just keep that in mind. I'm confident we can accommodate, but it will require more hands on deck.
Okay.
So
it's too bad the sophomores and seniors already picked their projects. This would be a good project for them.
I'm supportive of that.
Do we need a vote?
No, it's just a venue we're changing.
Okay.
I mean, I prefer doing it there anyway to have a live audience if we can. But it's going to be up to the TV whether or not they have enough personnel to do so. Maybe at least for the budget portions that,
Does the school have the technology and the capability? I mean, we're streaming live lessons every day from the high school.
I'm not certain of that.
No?
I know when we pulled out the TV room, makes that not viable. I'm not sure what the setup would be in the auditorium.
Okay.
well, just to clarify your question, the school have the tech to do what?
To record and stream the meetings
ourselves.
as a school district. I mean, we have video cameras, we have,
I mean, we can use Meet. We can do a
right.
Google Meet, record it. It won't be live, but it's a possibility. Michelle's talked before about the Boxcast option as something that we could explore. So
I'm just saying if there's, if there are times when the LCTV can't be there, we have experts too.
Yeah.
So,
we can, I'm also thinking just about the audio in there, the
yeah,
PA system. Because remember, 59 people, that includes people in the back row. So in order to by the
Right.
time you do your social distancing with all the rows, so
But I
you
mean,
have
I
to have
think-
a system set up in there.
yeah, I think you have a mic for public input and, have a mic on the stage catching the school board comments and I don't know.
I don't think we need to be concerned with 50 people in the audience.
Yet.
I'd appreciate it if they came, but I don't think so. Can't get 50 for deliberative, so. Just whether or not Rob has enough personnel that he can do the meetings.
So our next meeting is October 14th or 21st. Why don't we explore trying to shift back to that meeting?
Yeah.
And it's probably a good trial run before we go with the budget committee meeting on, because I think the next meeting will actually be the November 5th budget committee meeting. I'm doing it right in my mind. So there might be is there a board meeting on
the night before, I think.
so there's a board meeting on the 4th.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the budget committee on the 5th. So but at least it gives us then two potential
A tryout.
practice runs before
Yeah.
that joint meeting.
Thank you.
Also explore
It's not listed in our
that
upcoming meetings.
LCD projector. installed.
Yeah.
That would be much better.
The meeting's not listed on the agenda.
I'm sorry,
That meeting's not listed on the agenda.
which one?
The 5th, you said?
Oh, I didn't list budget committee meetings yet, but I will.
So Brian, if I want to talk about the Division of Public Health considerations for transitioning between school instructional models, would that be under the
That would wait for
fall
COVID.
school reopening plan update? We
Yeah,
don't
or
have
COVID.
a specific COVID on here, I don't think.
Under old business B, it's coronavirus review and update, so we'll hit it there if you're
Full
okay.
business fee. Okay, got it.
Any other school board comments? All right. That'll bring us community forum. So John asked you now if there's anyone on the phone.
There appears to be one member. If that person would like to identify themselves,
Do something.
He jumped off.
they hung up.
Give them a second, see if they come back. If not, then we'll just move on. There's still no one?
Still no one else has joined.
So we're clear?
Yes, sir, you are clear.
Thank you very much. All right, that'll bring us to public minutes from September 16, 2020.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from September 16th as drafted or whatever.
I'll second.
One thing if I can find it now. Can't find it now. Should have wrote it down. All right, we have a motion. Tyra, you made the motion?
Yep.
Tina, second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Tina?
Aye.
Tyra?
Aye.
Rob? Liz?
Aye.
And Brian's aye. 5-0-0. That will bring us to Campbell High School Principal's Report. Mr. Larnigan.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. As we get started here, I do want to introduce three of our senior project people. We have Lynn Nagy, who's our family and consumer science teacher. We have Denise Freeman, who is one of our fine arts teachers, and they are the clearinghouse for the senior project, so they control and manage all aspects of that. And we also have Abby Buxton, who is going to talk about her senior project. So Lynn, I'll turn this over to you and let you get started.
Well, thank you. Actually, we had sent you all a PowerPoint presentation, so you can look at that at your leisure. I also want to add that Rob Fay currently has one of our seniors working with them to help with all the board meetings and what have you. And I believe that individual has started his project in the last week, hasn't he, Ms. Freeman?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Freeman. She's going to give you a little bit of a rundown of how we got to this point, and then I'll add some things too, and then we'll hear from Abby.
Thanks, Lynn. Actually, most of you know I've been there for 20 years, and our first leader of Campbell was a visionary, and he worked with the community, and with that, it was the community and our first principal that wanted the senior project. So 20 years ago, what was started, we had a sophomore project. Sophomore project was a volunteer. But with the seniors, what it was is that students had to pick something or choose something, and it had to be a stretch emotionally, intellectually, physically. And it was something that they were supposed to be passionate about, something avenue that they wanted to explore. With that, it was a 40-hour project. There was 2 evaluators that evaluated it. And then we had a community night, which was a presentation night. Since then, let's roll 20 years ahead. We've had 4 different sets of advisors. Mrs. Nagy and myself are currently in it. And for the past 2 years, Lynn and I have talked about some changes, things that we thought needed to take place. And what we proposed last year was the idea of not just having it a senior project, but changing it to a capstone project. So it's still a project, but what students would do is you have the ambitious students as a junior, they could actually present and start the project and be approved as a junior. So it would be a 2-year ordeal. We thought about what seniors had on their plate as well their senior year. The other idea that we brought forward was live interviews, because we thought it was real important with interpersonal skills so that we could meet the students up front. They could talk about their project. We incorporated the essential question. So those are a couple of big changes that we did and brought this forward. The other thing is we had an idea last year that we want to do. COVID's put it in the way. But after the community night, we thought of having a fair in which seniors would show their projects to freshmen during an advisory, a short advisory, and then they would also have a time slot for sophomores and also an additional time slot for juniors. So they would all have the opportunity to see what kids do, interest, what it was like, to kind of help with them the anxiety and maybe with topics, thinking that the sky's really the limit. And we do have somebody talking about the sky tonight. So that's pretty much what I have to say. And Lynn, why don't you take over?
One of the things that we really want to take over and try to present to the community is the fact that we've tightened up a lot of requirements of the project. I think in previous years, there have been a few people that have had mentors that maybe were family members, or they hung drywall for an uncle, something like that, just to have a senior project. And that's not exactly what we want at all. So we've tightened up the requirements. We call mentors time to time, and we do check on them. We have checks and balances. We did have competencies, and we have eliminated that at this time, but we are doing pass-fail basis. We do have requirements where we check their logs. The first log check is going to be due very soon. They have to have 5 hours in. They have to have a proposal in by the end of this month. And right now we're standing at 57% out of 101 seniors. So we have met with 64 actually in person. And we started doing interviews. We say in person, it's Google Meets. We started this, what was that, Denise? Back in March, we started this with the interviews. And we've done it most of the summer. So off and on, we'll talk with kids and things like that. So we've had some fabulous projects just this year. And keep in mind, we're dealing with COVID right now. So we did drop down the hours required to 30. And at this point, I want to have Abby Buxton talk about how she has had to switch out a little bit on her project, but I want you to hear about what she's doing, because this is truly an example of an outstanding project and a passion of Abby. And some of you heard about Abby Buxton probably before, just from the fact that she's so involved in our school. So Abby, I know you have a little PowerPoint. I don't know if Michelle is going to be starting that for you, if you just want to talk about this. So I'll let you take over, Abby.
Thank you, Mrs. Nagy, for that. So, hi everyone, I'm Abby. I'm not sure if you can see the PowerPoint. I was trying to share my screen, but I'm not.
Abby, it's
quite
okay.
enough.
The board members all have a link to it, so they can click and see it on their computer if you plug right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So for my senior project, my goal is to get my private pilot's license. So that's kind of a big thing. So my reasons for choosing this, probably one of the most influential things is that it kind of runs in the family. Both of my parents are airline pilots, which some of you may know. And so I've grown up around planes, in airports, that sort of thing. And I've always been really interested in it. And when I was probably about 8, my parents took me up in a small Cessna and we flew around, and I absolutely loved it. And this is something that I've always wanted to do, but never really had the time or maybe like the opportunity to pursue it. So I finally decided that this would be a great opportunity because it was something that I was looking at as a possible career opportunity that I at least wanted to explore. So the senior project really pushed me to do that and to achieve what I've been working for. So right now I'm working on my private pilot's license, and then possibly following that, I'll get my instrument rating and my multi-engine rating. So some of the things I do and include in my time recorded for my senior project, flight time, which includes the pre-flight, obviously flying in the air, ground school, medical and license applications, and then you have to take a bunch of exams, so the exam and test prep. And so there's definitely been some complications with COVID. I think everyone's experiencing this. I got lucky because a lot of kids volunteer at nursing homes, that type of thing, and a lot of that is shut down right now. So I did start my senior project at the end of last year. I talked with Mrs. Nagy and Mrs. Freeman right about the beginning that they were talking about for those interviews. So before COVID hit, I was already doing this, but then unfortunately the airport it had to close for a long time because of COVID and because of all of the shutdowns and regulations. So that definitely made it harder to pursue this. And I know there's been a change in hours, which has definitely been helpful. But it was closed for a long time, so I couldn't really get any hours in, and I kind of had to take a break. Thankfully, now they're opened back up, so I am still back at working at that. But one of the major, I think, examples of that was I was supposed to solo and have my license, solo at the end of last school year and have my license by the summer. And hopefully next weekend I will be soloing and have my license by January-ish. But it definitely had a major pushback in the time frame. So there definitely has been effects of COVID, and I think that Mrs. Nagy and Mrs. Freeman have handled it very well in being flexible while still getting in the requirements and making sure that students are fulfilling the project in general.
Thank you, Abby. That was really enlightening, even for us as your advisors for this whole program. So I would like to open it up to those of you who might have some questions for us, and for Abby as well.
What are some of the other kids doing for projects?
This year, right now?
Yes, this is Liz.
Lynn, what about, we have a student right now, and he's actually picking up the dog in Vermont from a breeder, and he's training the dog as a therapy dog. And I'll tell you, in 20 years, that's a first. And
Yeah,
it was just really, really exciting when they proposed these projects. Some of them, you're just sitting there and you're like, a therapy dog, really?
we also have someone that's going to be doing all social marketing, social media and marketing for the school store. So we're going to get that up to speed and out there to the community so that we can sell some things and actually do some things that are really timely. Building a boat, we have someone doing that.
Another student, there's a student that's going to be working with Rob Fay. We actually met with this student last March and we approved his project and he was really excited. He was going to do something with theater and it was away from here, and he was so thrilled because that's really what he wants to go into. And then the poor kid was devastated when it couldn't happen and didn't happen. So we had to re-interview some of these kids. We've had to re-interview 3 times. But we did re-interview with him, and he was really excited. Rob Fay, I know, is his mentor. And what he's going to be doing, he's going to be learning about, as a communications major with filming and recording and doing all that stuff. And he said, although it wasn't his first priority, he was still really excited that he had an ideal mentor that could shepherd him through with communication skills. Because obviously being a theater major, he realizes how important communication skills are.
I appreciate both of your enthusiasm. You can tell how much you really enjoy this, even up on the screen. I really, as a parent, as a school board member, look at the smiles on your faces. You love doing this. And it's
I gotta tell you about the
appreciated.
one I met this afternoon. I just have to, because this girl just stopped by and she's so quiet and so shy. And she said, I have no idea what to do. So I'm throwing things at her. And I found out that her father is French Canadian, speaks the language, and her grandmother does too. And her mother is, I think she said she's Italian. So I said, have you ever thought about translating some of these recipes that have been in your family for years? She said, well, Mrs. Nagy, they're all in French. I said, so why don't you learn French? She said, well, my father speaks French around me all the time. She said, I guess I could do that. And then all of a sudden it was like a light bulb going off. And she said, yes, I'm going to do that. So she's going to do a digital cookbook, and she's going to interview all of her relatives and have them submit recipes, but she's going to translate it into English. So, and also have it in French at the same time. And then she's also going to do her mother's side too. So she left my room and she was so thrilled. She couldn't wait to get working on it. So I'm going to make sure I get a copy of that.
I would buy that.
I know, I want that. So it's exciting, it really is. We're not to a place where it's perfect. We have looked at models everywhere. My kids graduated from Bedford, and it was before Dr. Jetty was there. And my son built a guitar in the basement and then played Sweet Home Alabama. At that point, they were giving awards, and he won the award, and I'm thinking, how did he do that? I have no idea.
Wait, what about the video games?
Oh, yeah.
No, you don't understand. We have a student that designed a video game, like straight on up, like the whole game. And we were just sitting there and like, it was breathtaking to see this kid. And you have all types of kids in high school. It doesn't matter. They can be like the jocks, so it doesn't really matter where they are. But the cool thing is these kids find this thing that they want to do, whether it be automotive, whether it be like plumbing, pipe fitting, whether it be electrical. But this kid made a whole video game design.
You shared that with us last year, I believe, that student. You shared it with us.
And Michaela Short, too, also won an Emmy for her little short stories.
Yes, we saw that too.
That's right. Right.
And now we've got Abby Buxton, Flying Planes. So there you go. I mean, it never ends. It's really fun. So we're looking forward to seeing more projects. And Miss McDonald, I don't know what happened to the person that was going to be doing the gardens with you. He's like dropped off the face of the earth. So we're going to try to grab him and see what's going on with him here in a
Keep
few
you
days.
posted.
Lynn, can you talk a little bit about the presentations in the spring, what we're thinking?
Yeah, right now we're hoping that this opens up so that the presentations can go before evaluation committees. It might happen that this is going to be on a Google Meet. Usually it's two people, they have an evaluation form, they look at the proposal, they see the person present, they look at essential questions, they look at the hours, they look at the mentor, they interview them for a few minutes, and then they do check to see if they have enough hours. Then that evening, they do present to the community, and I know several of you have gone through that and looked at all the projects. This might happen that's going to be virtual. Last year, you know, it was really, really sad because we're ready to go. I would say about 40% of the kids were ready to go in the spring. Some of them had waited to do like sports related kind of activities, and they got caught with that. And a lot of the nursing homes and the doctor's offices would not allow these kids to come. So one of the things, like Mr. Freeman said, we do want to open this up to our underclassmen because a lot of them don't go at night to see these projects. So the next morning, we'd like to leave it up so that they could walk through and see what exactly is a senior project? What do I have to do? What are some ideas that I might have? And we're talking to juniors right now. I've got one that's going to be being the editor of the yearbook. I've been talking to a girl named Bailey Bork that I'm trying to see if she'll do something in the spring. She said, I don't know when I'm going to do this. I got sports, but we're talking to her, Brian. I just want you to know that. And there are a few that are very interested in starting early. The reason being, you can talk to Ms. Freeman. She was, how long were you the NHS advisor, Ms. Freeman?
I think like about 7 years. Yeah.
So these kids have the sophomore project, which I don't remember how many hours that is. Maybe you can tell me, Ms. Freeman. They have that for community service, where they get right out of that, and then they have to get community service for NHS and the honors, music honors, and then the art honors. So we're trying to get them so that the senior year is not so crazy. Maybe if they want to start at their junior year, they can do that, so they can free them up a little bit. And that's what we're really hoping to have happen with a few. We're doing that pilot program, so to speak.
But it really is supposed to be a passion and not a service thing. It's supposed to be like a passion and a stretch, something inner that they've always wanted to do and try.
Like flying a plane.
Well, this is Tina. I wanted to echo Liz's appreciation for your enthusiasm, because it's contagious. And when the kids come to be interviewed by you and they feel that excitement and enthusiasm, they're going to be so inspired. I just think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I was a senior who had a senior project, and it was, at the time we all kind of rolled our eyes and, we have to do this, but it was a very memorable experience. And that time management, that research that went into it, the writing, we had a 10-page paper that, we had to do as well. So
Did you hear that, Ms. Freeman, a 10-page paper? I'm all for it, but I got it shot down.
But
It's about the passion, not about the paper.
Well, but for me, a 10-page paper was like this unheard of obstacle, and I did it, and it was hard, and it was a challenge that I overcame, and all together, it helped prepare me for life beyond high school. So I think it's a wonderful capstone idea to have a capstone. I'd love to be involved and help out if I can sit on a review panel or.
There you go.
All
Done.
right.
Write that down. We'll send you an invitation.
All
We
right,
got you.
perfect.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank
All
you.
right.
This is
Anyone
Tara.
else?
This is
Abby,
Tara.
thank
I'll
you
be
so
really
much.
quick.
Sorry, 'cause
All
I'm there
those
for 4
changes
years.
sound terrific. And I'm just really happy you're taking a fresh look at it. And the one thing in particular I know that I've heard feedback about was the ability for students to start it early. So I think that they will really appreciate being able to start at junior year. So thank you.
Yep, we good. Thank you.
It
Thanks
only-
for having us.
It only took me 19 years. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
That's
you very
right.
much.
Thank you for inviting us to talk tonight. It's refreshing to get to, even if we are remote still, so it's refreshing to hear your feedback from us. And Abby, we want to thank Abby. She got off the soccer field probably with Bailey, and she's exhausted, I can tell you. But thank you for coming in and talking, Abby.
Yes, of
Thank all of
course.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Night.
you.
All right. All right, thank you again. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right,
AC's working.
that's good. I'm fired up.
So a couple of other things to talk about. So we have SAT testing coming up next week, and then at the end of the month as well. Really appreciate Jody, who spends a whole lot of time coordinating those things. So we have the freshmen. Well, first of all, before I talk about who's testing, we use this as progress monitoring for the kids. And the nice thing with the PSAT and the SAT is you actually can compare like tests for a child as opposed to taking your sophomore test and your junior test and not comparing the same test. So it's a nice thing about when we decided to switch over so that all grades would take it. Well, actually, usually the 3 grades and then the juniors taking the SAT. So we're starting on the 14th, next Wednesday, and that will be the freshmen and the seniors who will be testing. The challenge we have is when you're testing 200 plus students, and this is not just the in-school students, but it's also the remote students as well. They are going to get tested as well in a separate space in the school from the other students. So downstairs, away from the rest of the students. The rest of the students are going to be upstairs. We're typically going to have 2 staff members in the classrooms proctoring the students. These are pencil and paper tests. as opposed to the typical SAT that the students take in the springtime is now it's an electronic, it's a digital test. So, but this year they're all pencil and paper. So it requires a little bit more time working with the students and guiding them through the process. The other piece to this, which is why it requires so many of our staff, is that I lost my train of thought here. Hold on one second. I'm not sure where I was going, but we'll skip past that for a second. It's a 7:35 to basically about 12:15 to 12:30, depending on the testing room. That's what I meant to say. The challenge we have is for our accommodated students with IEPs and 504s, we actually have to have set up specific rooms for students who need extended time, some students who need things read aloud, some students have, so you have to actually increase the number of rooms that you're supervising for the testing. So with the freshmen and seniors testing on that day, the sophomores and juniors are going to have a remote learning day. So we've been really pushing the teachers right now to make sure that you have work set aside. It's not going to be remote instruction, but it's actually students remotely doing their work. And then the teachers will be proctoring the exams. At the end of the testing, the idea would be hopefully most tests would be done by 12:30, and then we would do a grab and go lunch from the cafeteria. And then after that, the buses will pick them up at 1 o'clock. For the sophomores and juniors, they're taking the PSAT and NMSQT, and the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test is for the juniors, for students like Travis Tucker, who qualified this year for NMSQT. So, and then on that day, which is the 29th, the freshmen and seniors will have a remote learning day. But the schedule will be essentially identical, the same setup on that. And I'll go back to Jody, who just does a tremendous job coordinating these things. When we first started talking about this, she did not want to be testing all the students. But the reality is we want to make sure that we can keep some data and look at data on our students as they move forward over time here. And the reason we're testing the seniors, as you all know, is because they didn't get a chance to do the testing in the springtime, and this is the state required test for them. So, and again, remote students are going to be coming in to join us on that day. So, and we're talking probably somewhere around, I think we have about 60 remote students, so somewhere around 15 students per grade level who will be coming in for testing.
So why is it paper and pencil this time around and not on the?
The PSAT traditionally is paper and pencil. Okay, it's the SAT that they went to the digital. And so we're fortunate we're one of the first schools in the state to actually use it. And we're a one-to-one school, we ought to be able to accommodate that. But this year, because of the change in the testing, it's all paper and pencil, which requires a lot of care and precautions. The tests are all locked up at the school right now. And so just a lot of preparation on Jody's.
Well, the spring testing.
The spring will be
occur,
back
and
to
that will be
digital.
back on digital.
That's correct, yep. And the other piece to the testing is because the juniors last year also missed the science test, the SAS, they're not taking that this year, our juniors, our seniors, I should say. And then in the spring, the juniors will be taking both the SAT and the science assessment.
Good times.
Yes, yep. And an update on sports. So Josh is doing a really, really good job sort of coordinating things. I will say it's not easy, even though you're in a different world with respect to athletics. He's done a really nice job of working with a number of the other the schools. Basically, it's Pelham, Sanborn, Conant, Hollis Brookline, Sauhegan, and Alvern. Primarily varsity contest. It's been challenging to get JV contest simply because it's more students in more games and things like that. And some schools are really enthusiastic about their JV programs, and others just don't have the teams. Mostly varsity. He's done a nice job of coordinating two challenges with respect to athletics. The first one is the athletic directors and the principals have agreed that in most cases you can bring 2 guests per athlete to a game. Some schools, however, are not allowing visiting athletes' parents to go to those games. We're comfortable with that. Josh has done a nice job of managing it. I went to one of our recent soccer games. Parents had their masks on around the field. They're close to each other. They're on. They're away from each other. They're on. Inside the fence, one of the challenges we've had is spectators outside the fences. And some schools do not allow them. We have. The challenge was we had a number of people who were sitting on the backs of their cars close to each other without masks on. And what we determined last week was we've got to take control of that so they understand if they're within 6 feet of each other, they have to have their masks on. If they're spread out physically distant from one another, then they can take their masks off. So I think he's had an easier time of it. But if you go around to the field, you'll see signs posted everywhere.
Can I ask you something about that? Why can't you be against the fence? The spectator line is probably about 30 feet from the fence.
Yeah.
Yet no one can stand at the fence.
Is he preventing them from standing at the fence?
That's what the posted signs say.
Oh, is that what it says?
They also say you can't sit on your vehicle to watch the game, which I don't understand that either.
I don't.
A lot of fields, that's what they're doing. They're sitting on top of their cars.
Yeah.
So they can see the game.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
I actually walked up to the fence the first time I went for a soccer game because, again, only 2 tickets, so I wasn't allowed to go in.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to the fence. All of a sudden, I see a sign: "Don't stand against the fence."
Yeah.
I don't understand.
And
the
I'm
reasoning
not
behind
sure if that's because he doesn't want contact to the fence and things like that. I'm surmising.
It's got to be a Litchfield rule. So I know.
No, it's not a state rule. That's why I'm asking why we're.
I did ask him, and he said he didn't want people congregating around the fence. But
But I think they
I
should-
was there that day with you outside the fence wearing my mask.
Yeah.
But I think it was directed more towards students is what I took. it
Yes, yes, that's
But
correct.
I think it's also that when we went in to do athletics, we said we were going to have to modify things. And the agreement we signed with the other schools, remember, they're sending their athletes to our field. And the agreement is that there are only 2 tickets allowed. And so there were, when I read that, it was to be nobody else there. And then this sort of thing has grown to people showing up, sitting on the cars, parking lots, et cetera. So we do have, I think, an obligation to the group that we signed on with to honor what we signed on to. So Josh can take it back to the AD group, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that's why I think he's being strict about it, because he doesn't want somebody to point at us. And I don't know what the other schools are doing. I haven't been to another game.
Well, I'm just curious if that's part of the agreement with the other schools that you can't have outside spectators against the fence.
You know those passes that we handed out to the athletes? They were in the packet. So basically in that agreement, when we signed it with everybody else, they said, these are the rules that we're all agreeing to follow. So I'm thinking that could be a part of it, but we can verify it.
I can flesh that out. I put a note to myself on that, so I'll do that with Josh.
And if it is, then that's fine if that's what we agreed upon. It just, again, those inside the fence are quite a distance from the fence.
Yeah.
So if someone's against the fence so Liz and I were about 8 feet from the fence.
Talking about the signs on the fence.
I'll talk with Josh
Thank you.
about that. Yeah, and there's one other piece of that I want to point out is Lynn and Denise were talking about community service hours, and the athletic leaders are out there. They're the ones who are actually giving people the thermometer to check their temperature, coming in, do the wellness check. So they're contributing to Josh's ability to manage those things. And there have been a few kind of comments about that. People who are not comfortable with it, but the reality is, if you come into the field area, you're going to do a wellness check. Yep.
And, the parent that sent in the positive comment about the athletics, I think is exactly right.
Right.
But if you look at other schools that have had to shift in their model, I'd say 90% of them trace back to athletics. So, keep in mind that we're doing all this because you definitely increase the germ pool just by cross-referencing. So I think we have to continue to manage it and not lose sight of where we are with it.
I keep knocking on wood about the germ pool and about where we are, and our teachers and staff have done a great job. Josh has done a really good job in managing this. So, but you're right, athletics is a concern, certainly. And then I guess the other thing I'm talking about here is the Latin honor system. So we dropped this with the COVID at the midway through last year. It was one of the things that was on our agenda to talk about. We discussed it at our leadership team meetings last year. There was not a whole lot of resistance to this. The challenge is, and this is a challenge any school that's moved away from it, is this intensity and focus on being a valedictorian, a salutatorian, and fine tuning your course selection so you're in all the honors and all the AP classes to boost your grade point average, which is actually, it's fine. It's really admirable that people do that. The other side of that is you focus too finely on GPA and on those courses that will improve your GPA, as opposed to reflecting back what Lynn and Denise were talking about, sort of your passion, or what are some of those other things you can take that will not hurt your GPA, but that will still make you a highly qualified, distinguished graduate of Campbell High School.
Student council,
Say that again?
like student council, being a member of student council would
Well,
help that.
There's a lot of different things. Absolutely. And that's I guess, Liz, that's actually an appropriate comment. When you look at the way that students get into colleges and universities, it's dependent on so many different factors, right? But you also have that ideal of sorts that if I'm going to be the Val LaSalle, I'm going to have a better chance of getting into Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and all of those other top-notch schools. And there's some logic to that. The other side to that is colleges are familiar with cum laude, magna cum laude, and summa cum laude. So they're familiar with grade point averages in that system. And I think the other thing it does is it takes away from some of that really challenging competition that's not healthy sometimes as students are going through high school. It becomes an intense focus that's competitive to the 100th of a point on a grade point average. And so when you sort of take away some of that, the question then becomes, are you talking about no longer having a valedictorian and salutatorian? And there are ways to address that. You need to apply for a speaking position and write an essay that allows you to be one of those 2 or 3 speakers at your graduation. And maybe you choose that person from amongst your summa cum laude students as well. So there are ways to sort of address some of the other needs that might arise out of doing away with, if that comes to be valedictorian, salutatorian, top 10. That's a really exclusionary way of looking at the world sometimes.
Are there
Yep.
schools that do both, that have Latin honors and valedictorian and salutatorian?
I'm not familiar with any that do. I'm more familiar with schools that have your Val Sal, your top 10, or schools that have gone to the Latin honor system. And I know, Mike, you had that at Merrimack Valley.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure what they ended up doing was selecting among, so everybody that lands in that top tier, then they compete for that. Now, there are schools that will offer a certain scholarship to the valedictorian. So guidance can always say, well, the number one person, yes, we confirm this person as the highest GPA, so they can sort of back end that.
Still to keep track of it, but you celebrate
Correct.
everybody who falls into that category instead of just the top 10.
And there is an unhealthy intensity come the end of your first semester of senior year sometimes about, I didn't get it, or I was in the top 10, now I'm 11 or 12.
Well, and I've noticed in the past few years that the top 10 are named halfway through their sophomore year.
Yeah.
And I mean, that sets up those 10 kids to either maintain that up through their senior year, or for kids who didn't get in their top 10,
They give up.
they give up. Yeah.
We tried to, and Jody, I think, could affirm this, not tell students their GPAs until the start of their junior year.
I agree. I heard that.
Yeah.
It still
Yep.
seems early to me, but.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, so much
correct.
can happen.
Right.
So
Yeah,
much can happen in one
exactly.
semester.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I think it's so unhealthy, to be honest, because they should be competing with themselves, which is
Yeah.
what Latin honors forces, not competing against each other.
Yeah.
That's, we're not in the business of sorting kids.
No.
And so if we can come up with a system that, think about the mental anguish on somebody.
Well-
I'm on the list and now I'm off the list.
Yeah.
So I'm a failure because I'm no longer on the list. I
Right.
mean, what are we doing? These are our top brightest kids who we should be promoting.
And it,
Right.
it seems to be in opposition to competency-based grading and learning.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I don't know.
It's how you're doing in comparison to the standards.
Right,
Now,
right.
not in comparison to Joey or Donna or Denise
Yeah.
or what have you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't say this as a Campbell comment, but I can tell you in looking at my previous school, it was the gamemanship that went into that too, because there's also certain GPAs in the courses that you take, and then people start pointing the finger at, well, that's not as rigorous.
Right.
I took an AP, you didn't take an AP. Of course, you got a higher GPA. I mean, it's just like enough of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It needs to be everybody competing to be their best. And then I said to a board member in a previous life, so if everybody, the entire class is summa cum laude, I wish we had that problem. Right? I wish we had that problem. Let's go with something not, you're summa cum laude, but you're number 98. Doesn't make
Well,
any
and
sense.
as long as, and some people argue that it waters down the pool to have that many kids graduate with honors, but I think it just elevates. It's not like everybody gets a trophy. We maintain those high standards
You
and
still have
those
to work hard.
expectations, and everybody rises to the occasion, and we recognize everybody who does.
At my former school one year, the valedictorian was just an amazing student. The salutatorian, however, was a guy who took career and technical education courses, which were not rated. They were not weighted. They did not get any additional value. This kid was amazing, and he was going to go on to become an engineer. But you typically don't find somebody who's taking unweighted classes. That's the exception. It's usually AP and honors courses all the way. Yeah. So if you don't mind, I have one other thing I want to talk about very quickly. I just want to mention Carolyn Late, Brittany Milligan, Nate Lammy, and Barbara down at the elementary school in terms of they're trying to get concerts. And so they're working really hard. They met with Mike and me and the other principals to determine how can we provide concerts. So they're going to do some remote concerts where they bring students into the auditorium, they video them, and then they, again, working with Rob and Litchfield TV, produce them for the community so the community can watch them. And I just want to say thank you to them. I think it's awesome that they're really reaching out and trying to make, particularly for our concert band students who don't have that class until second semester, they really want to make sure they get their opportunities to perform for the public.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the fact that they're doing that.
Yeah, and they, Carolyn, especially, my students don't have Brittany or Nate this year, but she has done an amazing job at making sure her remote students feel included and part of the band. I was an advocate for, I had said, I want to send my kid in. I don't see how it would work. And she's making it work. And they'll be part of that concert as well. So I think I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important.
Excellent.
And your report, I just thank yous. I mean, you had 2 pages of thank yous. So you can really see how everybody there is stepping up and pulling together. And I've seen comments on surveys saying that, certain teams feel like they've never been closer and they're working really great together.
This is a tough year.
But you had so many thank yous in there, and I hope people read that. I hope people read your report.
Thanks.
I did, and so you can just clearly see how people are stepping up.
There are the teachers, I will say, this is a hard year. It's very challenging for them, and doing the blended is not easy, but they are not just being supported by the administration, but they're really supporting each other. And if you were to see my Cougar, I put out a Campbell Cougar to the staff, and the shout outs from the staff to the other staff is equal to what the administrators are saying about the teachers.
Love it.
So
Good.
I want to make sure that we keep that momentum, that positive spirit that you saw from Denise and Lynn going as we move forward. All right.
We agree. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
So next up is our business report from Mrs. Stuckey.
Well, while we have Bill here, I just want to mention something real quick. I received a letter last week from Dennis Crow and his wife Cynthia, the donation of the materials that he had. They estimated that, they said conservatively, at just over $2,500. So I wanted to bring that forward to the board for a vote, just as thank you to Dennis for bringing this to us.
Yeah, if you know Dennis, he's a Lincoln Scholar, Presidential Scholar, Daniel Webster Scholar. Bright man. So, yeah.
That is.
Yep. Excellent.
So do you need a vote for
Thank
that?
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get a vote. Well, as a gesture and institute, he also did ask to have something as a receipt. So I'd like to give him the receipt for the What's
I'll
that?
make a motion to accept Dennis Pro's donation valued at roughly $2,500
I'll
of his Lincoln and U.S. history materials.
1 second. So Tina made a motion, Brian second. Further conversation? Hearing none. Tina?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Rob? Aye. Tara?
Aye.
And Brian's an aye. Motion carries 5-0.
I'll get something to Dennis.
Thank you. Night.
All right. So if anyone's been down by LMS recently, the columns have started to go up for the canopy project. So that's on the heels of, we had the guaranteed maximum price come in from Solid Ridge Construction, came in at $330 and change. I believe it's just over. So I provided a budget sheet for that with my report, along with what the funding sources are for that. There's about $24,000 that will have to come from local sources after the grant.
How much more is it than the original bid?
Originally with overhead and profit, it was 313. So after adjustments and working with the architect, it came up around 330. Initially, when we budgeted for it, 2 years ago now, it was probably looking around 320 to 325. So we're right in there. I'm still waiting to hear from Travelers and Primex in terms of the settlement from GMS to see if we get that approved. I was hoping by the end of last week, but there was the electrician and Dave Ross provided them with some photographs of the old switch that was removed. So they're reviewing all that. So I hope to hear within a couple days.
So Corey, just going back to LMS for a second.
Yep.
Do we have a completion date still?
They're still aiming at November 30th. That's the target. And they did give us a schedule that said early completion 11/20, but with things the way they go, if they're right near that 11/30 date, that'd be great. So things have gone. They've been working on the concrete work. The columns are up. They'll start laying the pad. There was one question out to the state fire marshal's office regarding the need for a fire suppression system. There's no combustible material in the project, so we're not thinking that's going to. At a local level, we've heard that from the local inspector that we wouldn't need a fire suppression system in there, but we just want verification. Bear with me.
Someone landed.
Mexico and warp speed now. Warp speed.
All right. With the special election and now the revised adequacy numbers have come out from the state, the final fiscal disparity amount was $659 and change. So that will be coming in as part of our quarterly payments. I'll be writing a letter to the trustees of trust funds and sending that over, but cash flow purposes, I'll probably break it into 2 payments over the trustees just to make sure we keep cash flow steady. I put a tax rate calculation in there. It's showing a level tax rate. I have final review with the DRA for other revenues. Sometimes they recommend adjustments in it, but I don't see any of those adjustments being material. So we should be right in line with where we wanted to be. We received a letter for the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. I just wanted to share this with the board, what rates are looking up to 25 years for lending rates, just to see what kind of environment we are in. Up to 25 years is below 2%, and those are listed in there. So if we'll keep an eye on that as we get working towards the elementary school project. Lauren provided the federal reimbursement numbers for September. You'll see with the waiver that was approved mid-September, but retroactive to September 1st. Based on the number of meals served, we got $18,000 back from the federal government. That's compared to $3,900 that we received same time period last year. She's starting to introduce some items back into the high school, chips, stuff like that, to generate some local revenue on that side. And she's also started a Facebook profile, which is mostly, it's informational purposes only. You can't comment on it. You can't share it. You can't do anything like that. It's just for her to be able to blast out information for the program.
Post the menus.
What's that?
Post the menus.
Post menus, do all those kind of fun things.
$18,000, how is that in comparison to if we weren't getting government aid and what our sales were the same time last year?
I'm working on getting into the local revenues and such. They're probably, I'd say, on the top of my head, they're probably pretty comparable what you're bringing in. So we're probably right in line with where we were last year at this time. Let's see.
Which is surprising, considering the fact that the food's free. You think more people would get free food.
So the
So actually,
participation numbers are going up since the waiver
Mhm.
has gone into place and people can get free meals. So we expect that to continue to go up.
and Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you took what a family paid for a
Mhm.
meal plus a non-free meal reimbursement from the government,
Mm.
we're making more money on the government reimbursement.
Yeah, 'cause
So
it's-
the revenue should be higher because when you add up the out-of-pocket expense plus the reimbursement. So
You get about $1 more, rather than what I think we charge $260, I think we're at now. And you get back about $350 for federal reimbursement for a free meal.
So all kids are getting free lunches. And why are my kids being charged? Because
They
they're not
charge
getting a
for
fruit.
like a la carte, extra items.
No, it said reimbursable
Second
meal,
lunch.
$2.60.
I think they still have to track it in the system, but I don't think it pulls from the account.
yeah, right.
Okay.
It'll show because it does have to, it has to verify that there's an actual person that took the free meal. We
Okay.
can't just say we
I'm gonna
gave
double check that
10 meals.
if I can figure out. how
But
to
it
get
should
back.
not be deducting it from your balance in there. The exception would be if you take an item like milk. Okay, I'd
Yep.
like to have a milk. That's
No,
not,
they're very good explaining, you need a fruit, you need a milk, you
Right.
need this.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact it said reimbursable meal means he got the whole
Thing.
shebang. Okay.
So then my other question is, I guess this was retro to 9/1. So if we've already been charged, are there credits that are going to be issued
I think we have
back?
to look into it. I'd have to ask Lauren on that one. I would think so.
I would think
that
so
would make-
too. I just haven't looked.
yeah.
Would make sense.
Let's double check that with Lauren to make
Mhm.
sure. I didn't realize it was retro. So that's,
That's what it said in the.
I don't think we did until it actually went into place. And then
Yeah.
when she showed me the full month's reimbursement, I'm like, they clarified that it was retroactive to September 1st. She has been working on the debt, student owed debt. It's down to $3,600 across the district,
Wow.
with one family in the high school owing almost 700. So with that being,
Are we
like,
up in the
she's made a
thousands
dent in it.
before?
we were over 6,000
Yeah.
That's what I
when we
thought.
first brought it forward. So,
Wow,
yes.
that's impressive. Go Lauren.
And is
I
that
get
person
sick
been
of those
notified that they
turkey
won't
sandwiches.
graduate without paying their bill?
I'm not sure what year they are, but I'm sure that will be communicated to the family as we get closer. Also in here, with the approval of the fiscal disparity aid, we had to revise the MS-22, the voted appropriations. So I provided that for signature tonight. That'll go up to the state. We can do. I have a phone call with our representative from DRA to work on the tax rate at the end of the week. So we should know within a week or so what the tax rate is looking like. In terms of budget, I think we have all but 2 departmental or building budgets into the financial software system at this point. So I'm accumulating that data, getting ready to schedule meetings with the department heads and directors to go through that information. So over the next couple weeks, me and Mike will be working with the directors and departments. And other than that, unless you have additional questions for me.
Does anyone have anything for Corey?
Well, I just, I know it said in the report that the Facebook page would not be open, but it appears as though it is open to comment on, and I don't think you can prevent somebody from sharing a post.
Yeah. She
So
was putting
that-
it on there as informational, and her intent was just
Well,
informational.
that's good. I think people go onto Facebook expecting that they're going to be able to interact, so I would encourage that. I think that it's going to be, the vast majority is going to be positive. I looked at the menu this month and like everything looks good. There's no hot dogs, you know, I mean,
So-
she's doing a great job just coming up with creative meals, I think. So, and this may be a topic potentially for a future related to this. I don't think we have a social media policy, do we? I know this, I have one that the New Hampshire School Boards Association,
For who? For us?
for us, I don't think we have one, but I think we should have one.
Social
We have one.
media guidelines
Yes.
that are attached
So
to
I
your
will,
code of ethics.
it's to our code of ethics.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. I did a search and I just couldn't find social media, so that's why. Okay, thank you. I don't have a pen.
All right.
Well, hold it. Is that social media for the board?
The board.
But there should be
Social
one for the
media for-
district.
Social media for students and staff would be found in the technology policy. That should be covered in there. That
Okay.
was one of the things that we,
And we went over that one several times,
oh my goodness.
many times.
So that's where we,
Technology policy?
yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
I'll
sure that
I'll
that's
compare
what
that to
Mr.
the one that the
Pelletier
School
had
Boards
written into it.
Association.
I don't quite
that
know how it's
covers
worded, but
staff
I'm
and
pretty sure that's
students.
where it is.
Is that the acceptable use or there's another
Yeah,
social media something?
It has a different name, but yeah.
That's
teachers.
Has a longer name now.
acceptable use. Okay.
Staff has one at the state level already in their code of ethics.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Corey. That brings us to new business.
So new business, the first item on here is the new school feasibility study. So if you remember, we asked the voters last year on a warrant article for $70,000 to conduct a feasibility study. All our energy from then until now has been into the capital planning process, promoting the capital plan, getting the public to understand what we're trying to do. And now that that has been approved and is buttoned up, we're now shifting over to the study. So if you look at the contract that's attached, and I communicated with Carl Ladd with the School Superintendent Association. So after Michelle and I sent Carl and Keith a long list of previous reports that our school district has done. And based on that, they feel that they're going to have to increase the fee that's in there to $9,000 to conduct this study. What I've asked them to do is to do a meta-analysis of all the studies that have been done. And I will tell you, when we listed them out, I think there were 20 different studies that date back to 2003 when we tried to build, or when the town tried to build a new elementary school at that time. And my feeling is that what we want to bring forward to the voters needs to encapsulate. We don't need to study that again. We already have findings. We already have findings. We've done a geotechnical study of the ground. We have the findings. And so basically what we're asking Carl and Keith to do is to summarize all those previous findings and to cite those so that somebody who wants to see it can do that. But really the case is laid out when you look at I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars the district's already spent studying this issue over time, that we just need to summarize all of that into one tight report. They will then provide a more comprehensive enrollment projection than what we do in-house. So they're going to take a look at, building numbers, South Central New Hampshire numbers, and then they'll come up with a better number in terms of what size school ought to be built based on all of that. So I believe the contract amount is not something we need the board to vote on, but I just wanted you to see what we're asking for. And the timeline that is in there is that you'll have that report from them, and they'll come and they'll do a presentation or they'll do it electronically, but they'll tell you what they found and what their numbers are. So they'll give the board that report, and you'll have that in December so that going into the budgeting process, you'll have that report to work off of. And, in our grants plan, I guess, is that we anticipate asking for additional money to go deeper. So you take the feasibility study and then we're going to ask the public, there'll be a warrant article asking for additional funds in the next year to advance the project further. And I think the other thing is this report will also have all the deadlines and timelines in it. So, if you're going to apply for building aid, there'll be trigger dates right in there so that we know what it is that we need to do in order to get that pulled off.
I think the taxpayers will appreciate that we're not spending another $150,000 on another study. And rather it's about $9,000 to get the answers that we're looking for. I think that's smart.
And remember, they approved 70 for us. So
Right.
we're proposing to spend 9 on this part. The next part of the project under B is what's called the owner's project requirements, or an OPR. And Corey and I are working with Dave Ely, who I think is going to also involve Dick Henry. So you've met Dick and Dave relative to the energy projects that we're working on across the district. This process is basically the public discernment of what are people looking for. So when we've asked the question, like, how do we find out from the public what it is that we're looking for? They will go through a process with us. We don't have a price tag for this yet, but there's enough money left in there to take it to the next step. And basically, the goal here is to engage in the public pieces. What do people see? What's the vision of a new elementary school? To be clear, it is not taking the 2003 plan that failed and just building that. The architect is not interested in working with the town, so we're back to square one. He did, I think, 3 different versions of the plan, more than 3 versions. So
No wonder.
at this point, he's like,
He gets paid.
Yeah, but still.
yeah. But we've moved on from that, right? So we really have to re-envision. And I'm not sure we want to build a 2003 elementary school. I think our notion of what an elementary school should look like now differs.
Yeah.
Technology needs are different. Security needs are different. And so we need a fresher look at this. And the other piece, to be really clear with everybody, is I'm very energized by Dave's vision and Dick's vision of a sum zero school. So in other words, one that is energy efficient and is really a very green school in terms of what we're able to build. And I think it's something that we can energize behind as we move forward. So
David Ely actually designed the Hollis Montessori School, which is smaller in scale than what we're looking to build. I believe he said that is at a point where it's actually net positive, like it's feeding back to the grid rather than
And that's a
consuming
source of
energy.
revenue?
What's that?
Is that a source of revenue for them?
No, you're not paying utility bills.
Right, no, I mean, because they're uploading electricity.
Savings.
you can't make money.
Okay,
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but like if you put a solar system on your house, you can't generate more than you use. And I think it's the same for schools.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but what Dick's talking about is, well, then you take it to the next level of, okay, we're going to get electric school buses. We've got excess energy, so we just plug the buses in during the day and then we're utilizing the energy there. So there are ways that you can there's no such thing as wasted energy. You just have to figure out how to utilize the energy you're generating.
Right.
So very energized by their vision of this.
energized.
Sorry?
You're energized.
Energized. That's great. But
Don't use it again.
Dave, I didn't like it. But Dave has said to us, this goes beyond the scope of a Montessori school. He said, I, as a one-man shop, I can design a Montessori school that will operate at this level. I've got the technical know-how to do it, but I can't do a school this size. So I think involving Dick and Dave in terms of the OPR. So we end up with a really tight document so that when you're then trying to hire an architectural firm, you've got something to give them.
Yeah.
You're basically able to say, this is our vision. Can you help us fulfill this vision? Right?
Well, there are other schools that have been built in the last 5 years as well. I mean, we toured Abbott Downing.
Mhm.
Is it Abbott Downing?
It was Abbott Downing and
And Krista McAuliffe,
Krista McAuliffe. That's correct.
which
But even now, think about it, 5 years ago. If we
I
start-
know.
Start construction in 3 years, you're talking 8 years more
Mhm.
of knowledge of
Right.
buildings and so
Right.
on. So
Right, and those are state of the art. Or did Oyster River? There was another district last year that approved a new
Oyster
school.
River Middle School approved, and apparently the
Yeah.
project in Sunapee did not pass. So,
Oh, okay,
so that they're still at the drawing board.
Yeah, but it might be worth, doing a tour of those facilities too and seeing what kind of
I know someone on the school board in Oyster River.
cool.
They can get us in.
And if we have our board meetings at the auditorium, we can have more input about what we need as a community.
So this is where we are with it, and they are in the process of getting a contract together for us on what it would look like to do the requirements. And in our early talk, if we sort of gel around this, I would envision keeping somebody on out of that project as sort of an owner's project representative, because when you go to build, you need somebody who is sort of overseeing that on a day-to-day basis, the clerk of the works kind of model, like making sure that what's happening is being done correctly. Dave Ely's serving that role for us at LMS, right? So I can go down there and look at it and say, yep, it's a cement pad with a column on it, right? I can do that. I can't look at it and say, were these done correctly? Is this filled correctly?
Right.
And so forth. So that's where we need Dave's expertise to help out. Corey, again, we can size it, compare it to a window and say, yep, it's straight, but you still have to have somebody with more technical know-how. So our vision is to continue that process going forward because we're going to need it. The last thing to mention is the architect's walkthrough. So we have a meeting scheduled with an architect who I think would bring a lot of energy to the project also. And so our goal is to sit with, to do a quick walkthrough and talk about our vision on it, and also to get the architect's feedback on how we're doing with all of this. So getting the feasibility study, having the owner's project requirement work done, not by an architect, but by a separate firm that doesn't have a stake in it. And then what can the architect do to help us along the lines? And so there may be an additional report that we could engage with an architect on now in terms of prepping for the next phase of this. So we'll keep the board updated as we move forward on it. But I just want you to realize that we have shifted gears off of the capital planning piece and into, okay, now we got to really start to pull this together.
So if I can just add one thing, because there's no spot anymore for committees. So I didn't in school board comments, but I don't believe we met since the capital improvement plan has been approved by the budget committee. I'm sorry, not budget committee, by the selectmen. And it was voted unanimously, and the number one priority is the new school. So. Yeah. I mean, there may not be anything, but I'm not sure who's meeting right now.
Budget committee's meeting.
Correct. Yes,
Had a
they
meeting.
look crowded.
I didn't have anything to, we're reviewing the town budget.
I said look crowded.
Very crowded.
Do you, is there a sense from the board that the capital planning committee, Tina and Brian served on it, Tom was sort of taking the lead on it. Do we need to get that group back together and continue so this work that we've laid out here, is it really that committee that should keep driving it, or?
I think it'd be a good idea. The capital improvement committee, we're going to get together still quarterly. And it was decided that we'll get together right after elections. Then we're going to get together 3 months after that. So you have, what the public voted for. Then 3 months later. And so every 3 months, and it's in a cycle where it just falls where, it's like perfectly aligned as far as
It
elections.
wouldn't be a bad idea. And then we have something that you can bring to that committee. and say,
Because what we
this is
talked about,
progress
it's
we've
a
made.
living document.
Right.
Rather than sitting on a shelf, and that was one of the concerns, was in the past, when we had the last one, which has been a while, it was never revisited, so it just sat there, and did anyone really look at it? Because things change and priorities may change along the lines. Like right now, we're saying the school's number one priority. Who knows? 6 months from now, something else may happen that something else is a different priority. So I think it would be probably helpful if we did meet, maybe quarterly, and maybe align it where maybe it's a couple of weeks before the whole committee gets together, so that, like you said, we can bring the information forward.
At the select board meeting, listening in, one select board member at least talked about the need to get a building committee going. So, I think doing the OPR process sort of gets you toward that.
Yeah.
But, I think it might be the capital planning committee that we have that morphs into the building committee, and now we need to expand membership on there. So let me talk to Tom about trying to get something in the works on it and get that up and going. And I think you're right, the monitoring will be important.
Excellent. All right, that'll bring us to old business. We have the second read of IHBG, home education.
Make a motion to approve policy IHBG, home education, for a second reading.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Tina made the motion, Brian second. So Tina?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Tara?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
And Brian's an aye. 500.
Thank you for that. Michelle, as soon as you have that updated with
'Cause we're
all
on
the date
WebEx.
information, we need to get a copy up to Steve Berwick at DOE. Yep. And so
But people are listening on the phone.
if you would email it and copy me on it, that would be great. So thank you for getting that update done.
Is there any reason we have to, if it's 5-0, we have to keep doing the
Roll call?
I? Why couldn't we just do the roll call if it's not 5-0? I'm just, it seems silly. Because it's the same meeting.
I think we got in the habit when
I know.
everybody was remote, but
Yeah,
Just-
right.
It just seems.
Now Brian just likes doing it.
roll call afterwards because everybody's in the room.
It's because this public is.
But I'm saying if it's
So you
5.
still have to have the roll
Yes.
call
Yeah.
because they're not in the room.
That's right.
Oh, got it.
But we never did when
Nobody
nobody
was here.
came to a
But
meeting.
they could come.
Oh,
They could come.
I
Now
see.
you're excluding the
It's
public
part of
visit
that
room,
order.
so.
Another reason to move to the auditorium.
There you go.
It's not a bad thing to have a roll call.
I know.
I can tell you,
Brian
especially
just-
the budget committee, so we're on it.
Yeah.
And I've said in the past, and that's why now they raise their
They raise
hand.
their hands, yeah.
I mean, when there's 9 members of the budget committee and then they just say aye or nay, it's like, I never know in watching, it's like, who's saying yes, who's
Right,
saying
no,
no.
I've had that same issue.
Right.
Plus
Even
Brian,
in the room, I mean, sometimes you can't decipher who's saying it.
plus
So,
you just like referring to yourself in the third
yes.
person.
Yeah. I don't have that many opportunities to do so. All right. Now we have the coronavirus review update.
Yeah, so I wanted to walk the board through. I've got the projection up on the screen. I just want to walk the board through a few things, and I don't know if this is something that can get picked up for the public or not. But basically, this chart that you're looking at is so just to show everybody where it's coming from, this is on the state Department of Health and Human Services COVID-19 chart. And this is the school's dashboard that the state has available. And we have a lot of parents, rightly so, who are watching this chart because this was the state's effort to be really transparent about what was happening in our schools. And I want to draw the board's attention to a couple of things. So we watch every morning since the first day of school, we have had a 10 a.m. COVID briefing. The directors and the school principals sit, we review the numbers, we talk about the impact that the numbers are having in our schools. We talk about other problems that are related to coronavirus. And I just want to be really clear with the board. We talk about how we support each other. So how does the district support the schools? How do the principals support the teachers? How do the directors and the superintendent support the principals and support the teachers? I mean, we are literally collaborating each and every day on how to get through this mess that we're in. And so part of the reason why I think we've had some success with rolling things out and staying true to the instructional model that's been adopted is because of that ongoing dialogue that we have each day. We schedule it for 30 minutes, but we've been on together for an hour. If we need an hour, we spend an hour, okay? So here's what's alarming to me. This chart, today is the very first day that word moderate popped up and that turned yellow. So until today, that has been minimal and it has been in green. So today's the first day. Second thing that's alarming, today is the first day that both Manchester and Nashua have turned red. So the spread in Nashua and Manchester has reached a substantial rate today for the first time.
Which means how many cases?
Hillsborough, for substantial,
More
it's,
than 100 per.
it's listed on this chart. I got to find it.
There are
Liz.
3 measures, and any one of those measures, if it's higher than a certain level, will cause it to turn red. So in this case, I believe it's the new cases per 100,000 over 14 days, which is over 120. So the measure there is 100. I believe that's what's causing that too.
100 cases per 100,000 people?
Is
Makes it
considered
go yellow or
substantial.
red? Makes it go red,
Makes it go to
1%?
Makes it go to red.
Yes.
The other thing is that this literally has every school in the state. I do the sort to show schools with cases, and then you can see Griffin Memorial School. Uh-oh, I touched it. I just reset it. Bear with me. I'm gonna go back to schools with cases. So I'm gonna filter out all the zeros, those lucky schools. And then I'll scroll back down to Griffin and not highlight on it. But right now we're showing 1 active case and we're showing 2 recovered cases. We're showing 0 clusters. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And that we don't have an outbreak. The other thing is that the last reported case for us was 10/3/2020. Okay. So let me walk you back through these numbers for a minute. Getting on the list with active cases. In the past, if a student or staff member took the rapid test, it did not get reported in this chart. So we were frustrated looking at this because there were schools that were in the news as having an active case that weren't on this chart. And that's because it was an active case by the rapid test, which was not reportable. In our case, they were all the other tests, the non-rapid tests. And so they did show up. The other thing is that they're showing up very quickly on this chart. Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes they're not showing quickly on this chart.
Only on
So
Saturdays.
we've been caught with it showing up here before we knew about it because that's what happens. We have 4 cases. This is saying we have 3. So we know right now of 1 that we've already informed parents of that's not reflected in the chart. So I just want everybody to understand that we're dealing with a little bit of clunkiness in terms of communication between various divisions and how it gets onto this chart.
What is 4? Is that 4 cases we've had in total or 4 active cases?
Okay, so the other thing is
That's
that
where I'm getting all confused.
They were
So-
active at one point.
Yeah,
We
but
have-
they're not
But they're
anymore.
not considered a cluster, I don't
But
think,
they're
because it's not
back in
showing up
school.
here.
That's,
let me just
Okay, go
let me
ahead.
deal with cases. We've had 4 total cases, right?
okay.
And the 4 cases, 2 of them are now recovered. In other words, you're beyond the 10-day period. And so it goes from an active case to a recovered case. It's beyond the 10 days and
And one of them
the
just flipped
symptoms
this
have
morning,
gone.
because when I was looking
Yeah.
at this morning, it was 2 and 1.
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And it should have flipped about 4 days ago because the kid, the
It should be 2
person
and
has
2,
returned
right?
back to school.
It should be 2 and 2.
So
Yes.
the lag to go from active to recovered has not made any sense to us. I think the last time we had people back in the school who were recovered and it took 5 days to flip over. So again, just to be clear, I love the transparency. I want our parents to do this, but I also want people to understand what those numbers mean. And the best source of the numbers is to call us and ask if you're confused, right? So I got a text from somebody today. Hey, what exactly? I think it's 4. I'm counting the notices that have come from Griffin, and I'm counting 4. And the answer is you are correct. This is not up to date.
So
But it's better than the Harvard model right now, because this at least shows local information. It's the best
So-
information. You know,
I mean, we have to notify the state anyway because whenever we have a case, and it doesn't matter who, how, whatever, it's a case related to the schools. Is there a way to post this information just for our school district in a place where parents, community members can track it? Because this is not reliable or accurate.
So every case we're notifying the entire community on. So
Okay.
our sense is that the parent who was sort of keeping track of those notices saying, this doesn't
Right.
make sense, I would just say, trust what we're telling people because
Okay.
we're getting word out about those.
Does the word go out to the entire district?
So the last case, it did not go to the entire district.
Okay.
It went to the school. But
It's
did
not really
go
need for it to
entire
go to the
district.
entire district. Though.
Right.
I mean, if it's contained in one school, I mean, that's a school that really it should go to.
But there are people, I'm not gonna bring up the FB word, but people are jumping to conclusions because they don't have all the information. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't read your Sunday thing. Did you say we have another case in the Sunday bulletin? That's the church thing, the Sunday notice.
Sunday
So I
email.
did
have to
not,
put
I
it
did
in the-
not send the Sunday notice, but
Okay.
I did communicate with the board, so
Yep.
you knew of the case. And Dan communicated with all the parents at Griffin.
And they can communicate
About
with
the
the
case.
public. I don't feel comfortable communicating with the public.
And I think I think that got put on Facebook though. I do think somebody said there's another case
Well,
that,
you posted it on
I
the school
did.
board page.
Because I got a copy of Dan. And honestly, there were a couple people on Facebook that said that that they were in
Yeah.
one of those classrooms and they didn't get the email. So I do think that there's value in notifying people
Publicly.
district-wide somehow.
Yeah.
yep,
you know.
I agree. I don't think
I don't
it's,
have a problem with that, like one active case of GMS.
Yeah.
A little flip card.
Exactly.
Right. 200 days without a new
Oh
case.
my God, my head.
I think too, I mean, we're still finding people are commenting that, I never got the email. I got the one on Sunday, but I didn't get the one on Wednesday. So messages are getting lost. There's always a few people that change their contact information and didn't notify and change it in Power School.
And I think that's why maybe going to this chart
Mhm.
would probably be the most reliable thing to look at. If people aren't getting emails or texts, whatever, then at least look what the state's putting out.
But it's not accurate.
I think part of what I've tried to do is come back on the emails because I do think they're going through. I mean,
Yeah.
we get the report back. So everybody who's called me and said I haven't gotten the email, I literally get a 90-page report on
Right.
every communication, and it's like, here's where it went.
Yeah.
And I think people are inundated with emails. I mean, I found myself accidentally deleting emails because I'm getting so many emails. I don't want to put the blame on it, but we are definitely getting the word out and communicating. And then this
Yeah.
source, as long as people understand this, that it's slow.
Yeah.
But I think if we try to create another place to look,
Yeah.
then it's going to become, why does this conflict with
Okay.
that?
I'm
So
fine with just continuing to post notices.
I thought I tried to talk that person down, saying it's the school. Yeah, I tried.
I think you did.
and then the definition of a cluster
Hmm.
is 3 or more cases that are all related. So we have 2 coming out of one cohort. And so if you get a third case out of that cohort, that would be considered a cluster. And then if a school ends up with 3 or more clusters, then it's considered an outbreak.
3 or more clusters in the school or a cluster of 3 kids.
No, 3 or more clusters. So if 3 students have it and it's all kind of interrelated,
Yeah.
or 2 students and a staff member and it's all interrelated, that's the cluster. And if the same thing happens in a couple of other cohorts,
All right.
so now you have 2 more cohorts that are all related, that's considered an outbreak.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
And so I think if you look down this list, I'm sure, I bet there's not even a cluster
I haven't seen any
or an
clusters or
outbreak in there yet,
outbreaks.
because the 3 or more.
It
Oh,
probably in
no, look.
colleges.
UNH has 2 clusters
Yeah.
and no outbreaks. So that means there are, quote, 6 students minimum, right? So 3 tied cases and then 3 somewhere else. And that becomes your 2 clusters.
Mhm.
And the outbreak at the Nashua Church, which will be bad. That's a big one.
So aside from the number of cases that we've had, which is concerning, just because I hate when kids get sick, in the plan we outlined other factors besides the data and the Harvard map that would go into considering, making a decision on whether or not we switch our model.
So let me switch to the Harvard map for just
Yeah.
1 second, because I I want everyone to understand again how we use this data. By the way, it's a big, scary red center of the country right now. And if we zero in, we're lucky to live in New England. I mean, we've got a lot of green around us and yellow. Although I was concerned to see that if I blow this up a little bit, there's actually a county in Vermont. Vermont's been the best state in the country. And now you can see that,
Is it UVM?
what is this? Addison County, Vermont. And I actually, when I look at that, I feel like it's south of Burlington.
It's in Orange County? Oh, no, it's orange level.
It's an orange level,
Where is that?
but it's Addison County. I think it's under
Norwich?
wherever,
Where's there?
what's above it? Let me look. Chittenden County is where Burlington is.
Yeah,
So
so that would be
it's-
all your colleges.
So
so
that would be the colleges, I would assume, St. Mike's,
It was
UVM.
Chittenden.
Well, there was an article that came out on CNN yesterday. It's a COVID-19 outbreak among migrant workers at an apple orchard.
In Vermont?
Yep.
Vermont.
Wow.
So that's probably what that.
There you go.
Okay, so it's,
Interesting.
it's like Rutland area, which I know because I used to live there. It's on the Champlain, south of Burlington.
There are lots of apple orchards.
Middlebury College is there.
Interesting.
A lot of mountains.
So if you look at this listing of the states over here, you can see that Vermont is 51st, the best state. It has been green the entire time we've looked at it. It went yellow, I think, yesterday, which means that number, the 1.6, so it's 1.6 cases per 100,000 people. That went over 1 yesterday, and that's what caused this to trigger into the yellow range. The next best state consistently has been Maine, and New Hampshire's been, the third best, if you
What
would.
number are we?
We're number 49.
Oh,
Third
nice.
from the bottom.
DC is
That's
included
good
in
though,
the
right?
list, so that's why you get to 51.
good.
Yeah, that's really, I can't see.
And 4.7, but I
Third
will tell
lowest.
you that number's been hovering around 2.0,
Yeah.
and it has now gone up to 4.7. So alarming to us again as a group is that these numbers are definitely trending upward, and we just want to bring that to everybody's attention. The other piece is, if you look around New England, because remember our travel is that you have to stay within New England, but then the next best states, it's DC, Hawaii, New York, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, New Jersey. Oh, there's Connecticut. So you have to go pretty high in that list to get to the other New England states. California, Pennsylvania, there's Mass and Rhode Island.
Out
So
of curiosity, where's New York right now compared to Rhode Island?
New York is at 4.6. Rhode Island's at 30. I'm sorry. No, I'm misreading. New York is at the 46th best state, and Rhode Island's
Wow.
at 37. So
you
Rhode
go-
Island's number is
You go to
9.
Rhode Island, but you can't go to New York.
Rhode Island's number is 9.0, and New York's number is 6.6. So it's a third worse, if you would. So these are the numbers that we look at. We then can drill down deeper, look at the county levels. And then coming back to Tina's question. So the rest of the things that are in the report, and this is a point that Dan keeps making with us, is the numbers are helpful in terms of what are the trends, what are we seeing, what is the impact? And, when these cases have occurred and we have put staff members, identified close contacts and put staff members into an exclusion and students into an exclusion, it is incredibly difficult to figure out how to staff. And when you look at all the open positions that we currently have, it's getting to be quite a challenge. Pinkerton Academy on Monday had to go remote because they were unable to safely staff their buildings. And so they declared a remote day Monday morning and said, stay home. And, we got to get through the day and figure out where we are with things. So,
What did they end up doing?
they had a remote day, and then by Tuesday they were able to get back
They
in.
were back in.
Yep. But they kept people off campus on Monday while they figured out where they were. And I just want the board to hear. I mean, we do have those other criteria. I'm feeling good about like our ventilation systems. We've been paying attention to that. But if we have a ventilation system go down, that's going to change the way we look at this. Staff absences and staff shortages are another very real parameter that we have to factor in here because, we've done a great job, knock on wood, but we are definitely coming up to, increasing numbers, increasing in our region, staff concerns that we just need to keep aware of. I will also share with the board that talking to other superintendents, more and more people are getting worried about the coming holidays. And so schools are looking at, does it make sense to stay in session between Thanksgiving and Martin Luther King? Why are we picking that time period as discussion points? Well, first of all, you have college students who are coming home at Thanksgiving. So your transmission from Middlebury College to Litchfield is enhanced when people come home for the holiday, right? Colleges are taking a firmer stance with their students and are basically saying, I know with my nephew who's at St. Lawrence University in upstate New York, they've been told you have two choices. You stay on campus for Thanksgiving, and then you can stay on campus. If you choose to go home at Thanksgiving, you are also choosing to be remote the rest of the semester, and you can finish your classes online and take exams online. So they're basically saying we don't want it going in and out because they have very strict weekend away rules that are in place. And so it's something we have to think about because we have a lot of older brothers and sisters. And in addition to that, another superintendent said they're concerned that the travel restrictions, if you look at these numbers, it doesn't make sense that we're going to lift the travel outside of New England thing. I know some communication has been that they're looking at trying to lift that. But I think they've been talking about that as the numbers are going up on them. And I think the numbers are going to force them to not do that. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. And then are you putting families in a situation where they won't be truthful with the travel because they do want to go to grandma's for Thanksgiving, or they do want to travel over Christmas or Hanukkah or New Year's. And you take all those pieces and you really kind of trigger, like, are we positioning our parents to not be straightforward with that?
I'm open to your cooling off periods that we took away from you.
Which, by the way, I will just point out,
around the holidays.
one of them was next week. The first one was next week.
Interesting.
Just to point that out.
Yeah.
You were right.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I got lucky as
No,
well.
but I think you're right. I think you're right. After Thanksgiving and Christmas, all it takes is one cousin from Vermont to get you sick.
Well, and
I don't know. I don't agree with going all the way that whole time at all. That's when you
Long period of
lose
time.
kids.
I think we have to look at what the situation is when we get there. And we've said all along, we're going to be flexible. We're going to pivot when we need to pivot. The thing is, it's already in Litchfield. We've had 4 cases at Griffin. There are many, many, many other schools that have not had 4 cases already.
We've had none. 0 in Hudson.
I know. So, yes, it's an increased risk, but
We knew from the plan, we acknowledged it in the plan that we were going to at some point very likely have to switch
Yep.
models. Okay. So I think that that's out there. I think what I'm still struggling with is what's the decision tree? And so I did want to bring up this New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services Bureau Infectious Disease Control document that is about considerations for transitioning between school instructional models based on level of community COVID-19 transmission and impact on local schools. And as you're talking about what you look at with the admins each morning, Mike, as it relates to this, it seems like we're pretty well aligned with this. Basically, they break it into what's the community transmission look like? And those are the maps and graphs that you just put up there. And then the other piece of it is, how is it impacting the school? Like you mentioned, Dan was talking about. So it's the transmission within the school facility, which, we're in the low for that. Student absenteeism due to illness, I think we're less than 15%, right? I haven't heard, so I think we're low with that right now. My biggest question when we look at the decision tree for, if we're looking at this, is staff capacity to conduct classes and school operations. That was what I didn't know, because as a school board, I don't think we cannot make that decision about, are we at critical status? Are we strained?
Is it per
I
school or is it a
think-
district?
I
That's my
think
other question.
you need, like, to me, if I was trying to figure out, okay, what do we do right now? I think we're low or minimal on all the other measures, but I would rely on you and your admins to tell us, where are we on staff capacity? I mean, there's not a objective measure between strained and critical, So I would propose that we do adopt this method of making decisions, because I think it's a good one. And they even have a, kind of a grid of when you're low and minimal or moderate and substantial, what they're suggesting. And it seems reasonable to me. It seems well thought out. Takes into account both the numbers as well as the conditions locally.
I think this is fairly similar to what was in our final plan.
Yeah.
Remember that we adopted that on August 6th. This came out on September 1st.
Yeah.
And so I think, and we had basically borrowed our concept from Pinkerton's plan, actually.
Yeah.
So, you've already given the authority to me and our team to make the right call based on the numbers. I mean, we're not going to be able to do a board meeting every single time to review the numbers.
Nor should we. We don't know what's going on.
And, and the impact is going to differ, Liz, to your point.
Yeah.
We might have had to go remote at Griffin, but keep the other two schools open because there's not anything going on there. So
Right.
that's the reality of it. I will tell you, let me just share, and I shared this with the admin team today. So here's what we're learning out of this. When you have a positive case, and then you have to isolate the close contacts. The close contact, or exclude. The close contacts are, spending 10 or more minutes in that 6-foot area with the person.
Without a mask or with the mask?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The mask does not matter. So masked or unmasked, if you are in that area, you are then excluded. Okay. So at Griffin, because of the nature of an elementary school, it's a class. They're all in one room. If this had happened at the high school with the current model, with the 4x4 model, that student would have then gone to 4 different cohorts, 4 different teachers, plus whatever else they've done, advisory or lunch or whatever. So by the time you
Then went to practice.
and then went to practice. So by the time you do all of that, that's your impact. Okay. So, you have 4 staff members who you exclude, but there's 3 other classes or 2 other classes that go to that staff member too, right? If we had not gone to the 4x4 block, if we
Like
had
at
remained
Elements?
on the AB block, it would go from a 4-person impact, a 4-class impact to an 8-class impact right off the bat. I know people are frustrated that we made that decision. I get that. And we're continuing to have talks and discussions with the teachers about the impact of that. But people have to understand, if it went to 8, you only have 40 teachers in the building. You've basically shut the school down with 1 kid.
I'm teaching 4 classes, 85-minute classes a day to 7th graders. Do you know what a 7th grader is like at 1:30 in the afternoon after sitting through 85-minute classes? And it's all for safety reasons. And I get it. And it sucks. It does. It's too long for these little bodies to stay still, but it is what it is.
But it's done to minimize that contact
Contact.
piece, right? And, so just realize that we've had 3 cases at Griffin, and we have impacted teachers and classes, right? But the school as a whole has remained open. That would not have been the case at the high school, really, if we hadn't made the shift. Now, knock on wood, we don't get a case, but we haven't yet. Middle school, it's going to be very interesting to see how that will trace through with the schedule that they have. So I really think we made the right decisions in the interest of safety, in the interest of keeping the schools open and reducing potential spread.
Can I ask you a question? in the middle school, so the kids, the cohorts are traveling to teacher to teacher to teacher to all, no, the teachers are
No.
coming to the kids. Yes?
I
They're switching.
They're rotating
Are they sitting in
classes.
the same seats in every class? Because that's what we do in our 4x4. So if I'm sick, we know that Michelle sits next to Liz in all 4 of her classes, and Corey sits next to Liz in all 4 of his classes. So now we know who the,
No, because at LMS, they all have different schedules. So they're switching they're going to 8 different classes each day.
Let me double check on the seating. I will tell you with the buses, for example.
I know.
After the first case, we learned it's who's in front, who's behind, who's next to.
but you have a camera that can show you that,
Correct.
which is awesome.
Very lucky.
But let me just do a double check with Tom tomorrow on, do they have assigned seating and is there some continuity of that? Would be a great question. I don't know.
But it makes sense that every kid sits in the same seat. They know where to go.
I'm texting my boys.
I'm just curious.
See?
Because it would make
Answer.
it so much easier if there were
Yeah.
4 classes,
No,
but it would
you're
make
right.
it even easier if they all stayed in their seat. Oh my God. I'm getting on my score.
Nick
No, I
says
think-
yes. Nick says yes.
They
In
sit in the
eighth
same
grade.
seats?
Do you sit in the same seats in each class each day?
That's
Yes.
good. That's good.
He could be saying he sits in the same seat, not the same seat.
That's true. I forgot I'm asking
It
an
is an
eighth
eighth
grader.
He sits in the same seat. but
Andy sits
different
on
kids
his
all
seat.
around.
Right, right.
Yes, I sit in a chair, Mom.
Do you have assigned seats?
Assigned seats, but not the same in every class, because we have different IEPs. and different
Just
classes.
curious.
So my objective in going through that, I think we did this a few meetings ago, but I just want to just reiterate with the public how seriously we are taking this, that we continue to have that daily call. And, we're also looking at daily numbers. So how many staff are out sick, how many students are out sick, just walking through those numbers is also very helpful so that we can get a handle on it. The other thing I wanted to share with the board, if you click on that link called Equity Access for Students, we created this matrix after a conversation that we had at the board level, basically looking at our in-person students, our remote students, and our homeschool students, and what the access was that each group has, and then what is our reassessment date on this. So it's here for the board to look at if you have comments. I think this is consistent with what we've talked about in the past. But I just wanted to share with the board that we provided this to our team so that all 3 schools were having the same approach to things, and it was clear what they should do. The other thing is, on that note, we've had 2 calls with our nurses to talk through different protocols, because we want to make sure the response we're giving at the high school is the same as the response at the elementary school. So it's awful. When you look at, you're going to see tomorrow, I think we're going to send out an updated health screener. And I'll give you a quick glimpse of it actually, so that you can see it up here. So basically, we've streamlined it to 3 questions. And the first is all the symptom questions. And we broke those out so that instead of it being a run-on paragraph, the actual symptoms are kind of spelled out and grouped. They're grouped around kind of common ideas. We are adding nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea to the list because that is on the list. And so, the problem is a lot of people will say, well, this is a respiratory thing. Why is that on there? Because that is how it's manifesting. So, so the point is somebody could have, a bad meal, get an upset stomach, and now be excluded on the COVID. And so that's the concern that we have with it is,
I mean, our policy already says vomiting and diarrhea, stay home for 24 hours.
it does, but now it could lead to a
Right.
10-day.
Right.
And
parents have to pay every time. I know people who have already spent $1,000 on testing.
Or you go remote for 10
because they
days.
wanted a cough drop.
on COVID testing?
Mhm.
So
Oh my
I checked
God.
with the nurses. The nurses, the testing is free. If you go to the Armory, I believe, is where the state's giving the tests. So they,
You
they
might
should-
want to tell
I
parent
thought they
people
closed
that.
the armory down. I went to over the summer.
Did you
I
pay?
went.
This, the people
No,
I know
it
go to
went
the
through my
doctor's
insurance.
office, even though the test is free, they have to pay for the doctor's visit, $250.
It was like a
Yeah.
park and ride in Londonderry, but there's a whole listing of where they can go. Wherever
free?
the state has,
Yeah.
wherever the state has set up is where I think that you can go for
Should
free.
hand that out.
People-
Teachers should hand that out.
I think anybody who feels they need to get a test needs to talk to their physician about how do I get this done economically, because it can be done. And even if you go to like Convenient MD, there's paperwork you can fill out if you don't have insurance. You can fill paperwork out to get the test covered. So I asked the nurses that because I said, I feel badly that somebody is spending that kind of money on testing. And so the nurses said that should not be the case. If they ask us, we have a list. Kelly Chambers said, I just advise a family, go here, here, here. This is where to get your testing done. So
So what is the direction then? I mean, the direction is if they have any of those symptoms,
if they have the symptoms, that is the stay at home,
yep.
talk
call
to the nurse.
Right.
And, they may be excluded from attending school, in which case they can pivot into remote. So, that's at least available to them. And it's really all about stopping the community spread of this. So, we've heard from parents who are saying, well, I think it's just allergies. Well, if there's no history, no documented history of allergies, then it doesn't rise to that level of
Yeah.
what we can just take care of, I guess. The second question is really about close contact. So this went from 5 questions to 2. I'm sorry, to 3. The second is close contact with somebody who's confirmed to have COVID-19. And I think I'm going to cut out this whole piece about healthcare providers because that doesn't apply to students. And our staff who are healthcare providers know that. So I don't think it's necessary to have it on here. And then the last question is we've just clarified the travel piece. If you've traveled in the prior 14 days outside of the 6 New England states named, then you
See, I
are
think
excluded.
that should be linked to something that changes with the number of cases. Because right now, like you said, Rhode Island has a higher community spread rate than New York does.
Wait for a while.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
That's the
that's from the state. So that's the state requirement on us.
So
So-
we can't change that.
No. I
Because what I'd like to see is, if you've been to a county that is not green or yellow,
But that's governed by the state.
Then think about the changes involved with that. That requires somebody looking at the numbers every day and determining. Yeah, I don't think that's.
yeah, I mean, we're in a pandemic. That's what you have to do to keep people safe. Yeah. It's a hassle, yes, but so is getting COVID and having it spread in our schools.
that's a copy and paste right from the state, but thank you for picking up their error. And then the last thing, just at the bottom, we just sort of updated how this is different. So this is the 10/8/2020 version of it that's going to go home to everybody tomorrow. It'll be on paper. People are encouraged to stick it on their fridge, and that's where we are with it.
I'll make sure it's sent out electronically also.
Yes.
Definitely.
Do you think we can
I'll
have the
post it on
nurses
Facebook.
give a list of places where free? Because the person I have been in contact with said her doctor said you need to come in. Of course they do. They want their money. But if the nurses have like, this is a place you can go where it's free, that would be nice for them to give out.
Could just send it out with this screening.
Yeah.
That
On
would
the
be
other side of
awesome.
it. On the
Yeah,
other side of it.
because I'd go to the.
There's
free
a
one if
link I
had
can
to.
find. I can post
And
it on our
maybe
Facebook
include
page too.
Google?
Community-based
Google?
testing sites.
That'd be
Hampshire
awesome.
How to get it.
Community-based
Yeah.
COVID-19, it's on
Yeah.
DHHS.
Yeah.
What is it?
DHHS.
I'll post it on our Facebook page too.
On Facebook, Google around.
Mike, you mentioned something to me about back to the travel, the travel and what states can I go to and what I shouldn't go to. And I mean, you said something to me, and it was that because we are responsible for the safety of all of our students and all of our staff members, we have to be more stringent than somebody just taking care of their family and assuming that risk, right? So, if I were to go to Florida, I'd make a decision from, I'd come back in quarantine. But since we're a school district, we have to be more strict.
So it was a gentleman at DHHS
Right.
who explained it to me this way,
Yeah.
because we had some families who 100% thought they had done the right thing
Mhm.
relative to travel, and they didn't. They violated the travel ban. And if they call up to DHHS and say, this is what we did, DHHS will say, we suggest that you self-quarantine for 14 days, right? So that's their suggestion to them, but there's no requirement on an individual to do that. It turns its head around the fact that we as a school district chose to open. So if we were remote, nobody would care if somebody traveled. If we were hybrid, you still would have to exclude the child from the hybrid piece. And we're full in. And what they said is, we have an obligation to ask that question, and they have an obligation to be truthful. And if somebody is, in fact, traveled outside of the 6 New England states, they have to be excluded. We have to exclude them. So I was like, oh, well, that makes sense to me.
Right.
That, because we want to be open, that's what we have to do.
Mhm.
So
Thank
it's
you
it's
for
a
explaining
two-part
that
test.
further. Yeah.
It's, are you doing it as an individual, or are you doing it as a school that wants to be open?
Mhm.
And they actually said, if we're caught violating it, that the DOE can investigate us and shut us down and say, you've lost your ability to be open because you're not following this. And I took it a step further, because I'm working with DOE. If we as a school are knowingly violating the rules, they'll come after us on the ethics side of it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, great, here we go. Now they'll come after my license or sanction me. So I'm like, I'm not messing with the DOE on this stuff. If
Yeah.
they're telling us you can't do it, you can't do it. So that's the reality of it.
What's that?
So where are we? How are we doing?
So the other piece is, just from the school reopening plan, I have to tell you, every time I've sat down, I've been yanked off to another situation. So I don't have it done. I mean, I want to get that thing updated so that it reflects the current reality, and I just have not been able to get that accomplished. So I apologize to the board. I'll try again between now and the 21st, because I want to have that updated, but it's been brutal on our end. I do want to thank, I think Tara and Tina made a ton of comments in the draft. They just need to get incorporated and built in there, and I just need to buckle down and do it. So how are we doing? I want to give the board an update. In fact, I'm going to have some of the directors join us in non-public so we can talk our way through some of the situation. It really gets into personnel stuff that I think is better parked there.
Directors?
The directors.
Okay.
And there's, we have yet to finalize our working conditions MOA with our association. We finalized it with the support staff. We have not finalized with teachers. So I want to talk about that also in non-public, but it's a challenge out there. I mean, I will say in public, we are keeping this together day by day. It's taking a tremendous toll on staff. I hear the public talking about the the teacher piece. It's taking a toll on the directors. It's taking a toll on the district staff. So just to be clear with everybody, we're all pulling in the same direction, but it's tiresome.
So what can we do as a board you talked about, we support each other, and the admin support the principals who support the teachers. What do we need, even from a budgetary standpoint? Do we need to go we've talked about going 1-to-1 at GMS. And that for me is the sooner the better, because we need those kids to learn those devices in case we do have to go remote. Right now, they don't have enough even for a full class set per grade level.
And part of that is the Chromebooks we ordered haven't come in, right? So I think we're still waiting for our shipment at this point.
Did we order enough to go completely 1-to-1 at GMS?
No, but we were getting a lot closer to it. I mean, we were telling
Expanded down to 2-to-1 at third and fourth grade, I think.
I thought we were going younger than that. I thought we were getting to second grade.
I think you could reallocate some resources down to make it more accessible. But I don't think
we should
got
go
down.
1-to-1 all down to first grade.
There, you know,
In-
some of the staff comments are that, you know, the students don't know how to type. So even the keyboard input is something that, you know, some students are good at, but not all.
Right.
And so there is a limit to the one-to-one, giving the device, but then,
I mean, more in terms of, you know, we have a class that, you know, finds out on Monday that they're going to be remote for 2 weeks. We don't have enough devices to give those. I mean, they haven't learned how to log in. They haven't learned, you know, how to access Google Meets because they haven't been able to do them in the classroom and prepare for that. And then we're sending them home to do remote learning without a device.
We don't have the devices.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But if we only ordered to go 2 to 1 down to grade 3, that's not enough. So I understand that they're not coming in, but it's clear that we need more than we even ordered.
And when you talk about budgetarily, I mean, you're usually looking 18 months out to begin with, and then you throw this into the mix.
Yep. I understand.
I mean, FY20, like we're knee deep in FY21, still don't know what the rest of this school year is going to look like. And then trying to plan for the subsequent year, it's really
Absolutely.
it's complicated.
Absolutely. But I mean, if we need resources so that we can remain open, and if that's the board decision to remain open, or that's the plan to stay open, we need to know what we need to do to stay open, or we need to make the decision to pivot to another model. I mean, it's all well and good to say we're hanging in there and we're surviving, but we're supposed to be thriving. We're supposed to be making improvements and making gains. So I just, you know, if we need to act, if we need to take action on securing whatever we need to secure to make it happen, I think we need to do that.
I thought the
I
last time
agree.
Jason was here, he said he ordered a bunch of other ones at the end of June, I think. So I know but I don't know.
The
How
problem is
many?
that every district in the country was trying to buy Chromebooks. Hence the reason ours just kept getting pushed back. I think the last we heard was the ship or the arrival date was right around now. I don't know that they've actually come in yet. So
Yeah, we could double check with Brendan to see if he's heard anything.
Because I think that would go a long way too in these, you know, having a whole class or 2 classes have to be out for 2 weeks. I mean, because it's happening at GMS, which is where we don't have the devices, it's even more.
Once the new ones come in, you have 2 grade levels of Chromebooks that'll be coming back into circulation. Because 5th grade will get the new ones and freshmen will get the new ones. What they have right now will go right back. So there will be Chromebooks
I thought
available.
they already had the new ones.
No, they're the old ones. So the ones that are on order right now are for 5th grade and for freshmen. And they will then in turn in what they have, get new ones. So you got, again, 2 grade levels. So you got a couple hundred Chromebooks that will come back into distribution.
And we're not allowing BYOD.
Yeah.
No, but once the new ones come in, you get 200 that can be
Kids
utilized.
use phones in our school, anything to get them the technology in their hands.
but remember, we are 1-to-1, 5 through 12. So the issue really is at GMS.
Yeah.
How did people do it in the spring then, if there weren't any devices?
Well, we weren't synchronous. So
Right.
people at home were grabbing whatever device and they could get on a phone or share the computer. There was a lot of share the computer going on. So this is different. If we pivot now, we're going to be synchronous. It'll be more like a school day because that's what we're in the mode of. And it's going to present a different round of challenges, I think. But we'll conquer them. But we need to get the devices. So
Right.
there are the 200 on their way.
Hopefully this month.
So if we need to order more, let's order more.
Why do kindergartners and why do first graders need computers? Can somebody
Because that's how we're teaching them things.
in the building?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're expecting our teachers to teach in person and remotely at the same time.
Yeah.
So kids at home are on a device. Kids in the class are looking at a board or the projection of what the teacher is doing.
The kids have low muscle tone as it is, and now we're going to give them a computer. I don't think first graders need a computer.
So how do you do it?
They use pen and paper, pencil and paper.
The kids in school do.
Yeah,
How do the kids at home do it?
they go on the computer because a PDF is on there and they can type on that, like I do.
Mm-hmm. So the teacher has to prepare the materials for the in school kids, and then make the PDF and populate it with the boxes. I'm just saying.
That's what.
And then what
we're
happens?
planning
And
for.
then what happens? That's what we're paying them for.
That's what we're planning periods. I just don't agree with first graders having screens in front of them personally. I just don't. I'm not talking fourth, fifth, sixth. I don't agree with first graders. I think they need more manipulatives.
I
It
think
doesn't have to be screen time. She could be talking, holding up stuff, cutting.
Yeah, but then when we have 2 first grade classes that have to be home and go remote for 2 weeks, then what do?
We wait until Chromebooks come in. Unfortunately, there's nothing else we can do.
I will tell you that Devin.
We can buy more, but then when are they going to come in? July?
Devin's been buying Chromebooks for special needs students out of the grant, so it hasn't cost the taxpayers any money because she was able to do it. But the way she's done it is go online, find a Chromebook. I can buy one. I'm paying $100 more than I would, but I can get it today, and it can, Amazon delivers it.
And
on
this
the
is for a
spot
kid
kind
at
of thing.
home.
For it's special, I won't say the kids at home necessarily, but it's for a special needs student out of the grant.
Which I understand.
So
Yeah.
what's not ideal about it? You're paying a premium, but you're getting it now. Jason with the 200 using taxpayer dollars is waiting for the order to come in. He didn't say.
No, I completely understand.
And hopefully they come in soon. I mean, because they're
I
scheduled for
know,
right
I
around
know,
now.
I know.
But
And
I
So
don't
that in itself is
understand
going to
why-
I'm
alleviate
not
a lot
saying
of
that
problem
I'm not
and
saying
hold
that
it up.
Chromebooks are going to solve all of our problems. What I'm saying is whatever we need to do to make to get the teachers out from underneath and drowning, and to go from just barely surviving to actually teaching kids and having good instruction happen. Which, by all accounts, parents seem to be really thrilled with how well the teachers are doing and how much they're holding up. I worry that it's not sustainable.
I completely agree with you.
I agree with that. I just don't understand. You have a whiteboard. The kids at home have a whiteboard. You hold up your answer and they can see it on the screen. Look, little Tina has her little right answer on her whiteboard of 8 + 8. It doesn't all have to be in a computer. They need different things to turn them on.
But
for lack of a better
I think
term.
part of what Tina's talking about is what happens if everybody goes remote.
They're
You
going
know,
to do
how
what
do you
they did in the
access that?
spring.
No, they're not.
Why?
Because it's going to be similar to what it is right now.
Yeah, but kids have computers at home. Most of them do. And if they don't, we need to know immediately.
But
And
in the
that's what we did last
spring, kids didn't have to be logged in all, asynchronous learning with their group and their teachers. And that's what we're expecting that will happen if we go remote. That's part of the plan. So you're not able to share a Chromebook. If I have to be in my first grade class and you have to be in your third grade class, we can't share a
Yeah, I
device.
get it.
Yeah, but they can use another instrument. They don't have to use a Chromebook, so they can use a phone. So they do have instruments because we were able to
So
supply
here's the
everyone.
thing with that. Speaking as an early educator, when I learn at school how to turn on my Chromebook and log into my Google Classroom and navigate on my Chromebook, and then I go home and I'm using dad's laptop or an iPad,
And guess
it's
what?
complete-
Mom and dad will show them how to do it.
mom and dad may not be home. So
For a first grader?
First graders are.
I would think for a first grader, someone's going to be home.
So let's nitpick and pick apart all of my arguments instead of trying to solve problems. I'm not.
You started off by asking about the Chromebooks, and the Chromebooks are backordered. We can't do anything. That's where you started. And we're going on full circle here. The Chromebooks are coming. Once they come in, we'll have 200 more Chromebooks to pass down to other grades that need them.
I think to Tina's point, to get the teachers some relief. So Dan is continuing to have conversations with them about what to do. When we go into non-public, I think we need to hear from Dan about what he's hearing. And it's not a technology solution. I don't think, I think that's a portion of it. But I think there's other things that we really need to do to get our teachers loosened up. I will tell you, I had a conversation before coming down here with an elementary teacher. It is getting easier as time goes on. People are getting into the groove. The beginning days of school, it's all about teaching routines. And, so now all of a sudden it wasn't just the routine of who's here, it's the routine of the students over here also. So we're hitting a groove, but we have to keep trying to find ways to make it easier.
That's, I just don't think Chromebooks are the answer to
And I'm
everything.
not
Throwing
saying
a
it's the
screen
end
in
all
front
be
of a
all.
kid.
I'm saying we need to do what we need to do to make sure that everybody has what they need so they can learn.
And we need to listen to them. The
Yeah.
surveys are really showing that our teachers are dissatisfied
How many
in
teachers,
great
how many teachers
numbers.
responded to the last survey?
Does it matter?
It does.
Yes.
It does. How many responded?
Well, the last two surveys, about 20 each
Each school?
Total.
No, 20
total.
on each survey.
How many
So-
teachers do we have?
I mean, hundreds are.
Well, I'm just curious. I didn't know the number. Interesting.
Well,
But-
we have 4 weeks of data though,
Mhm.
and the numbers are very
Or
similar.
20% of the staff reporting?
No, the
Percent of
first
teachers.
week was
the
like
teachers, yeah.
over 100. I don't have the numbers right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, you're talking about teacher dissatisfaction overall between 25 and 50%, depending on the school. Those are not insignificant numbers.
And when we have parents noticing that teachers are struggling, that's a red flag. I mean, teachers might be, we might hear that they're having a really hard time, but they don't show it to their kids, especially at elementary school. They do the best they can. They wear a smile, but when parents are seeing it, that's a red flag to us. And I have to point out too that the gap in satisfaction between our in-person students and our remote students is huge. I'm really glad that we're hitting our stride and that the routines have been established and the kids in school are feeling comfortable and teachers are doing really well with them. But there's still a large proportion of our remote kids who aren't getting what they need. And I think that needs to be addressed as well.
The one thing for the board to keep in mind, I agree with you on the numbers, but what's our comparison, right? So if we're comparing to the way it used to be, I'd be curious to see in a district that's hybrid, are they hitting the same point, or a district that's all remote, are they getting the same thing? I mean, right now, I feel like America is grumpy.
Definitely.
And
I think I'm a ray of sunshine today. You guys both, everyone here knows what a ray of sunshine I am today.
yeah.
You
No,
didn't
I
even
think
get the
I agree
brunt
with
of it.
that. I agree with that. But
And, I mean, we're just dissatisfied with a lot of things because
Right.
none of us like the cards that we've been dealt, so.
Right.
and there are problems with all models.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Right.
And that's the point that I'm making.
Right.
Talking with a teacher, they said, well, I know of a district that, they shorten the day. So teachers have an extra hour a day to plan and prepare. But the parents are upset because they now have an extra hour of daycare or an extra, have to leave work different hour. I mean, so I don't know what the right answer is on any of this. I'm just saying that it's not a good situation all around. And when you look at the chart, it's not getting better. So I think we stay at it. We keep having the conversation. Let's talk in non-public, we can dig in a little bit deeper. Some of the comments are pointed, but they need to be discussed, and then we'll figure it out.
All right. Any questions on the manifest? Hearing none, we go back to community forum. John, is there anyone on the line?
There are no participants on the line.
Very well. And with that, we'll go into non-public RSA 91-A:311. Yes.
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 Liz?
Yes.
All right, we're non-public.
Chuck, can I borrow your phone?
All right. Are you inviting them now, or are we going through all the rest of?
Good night.